My idiot boyfriend let my STALKER-EX into our apartment just to leave me a birthday surprise that I really did not want. Because after several months of telling this guy to get lost, as well as my boyfriend not taking the situation seriously, I now feel completely betrayed, as it's obvious to me that my boyfriend literally does not take any of this seriously, putting me in a situation where I really just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I broke up with my ex 10 months ago, but this guy will simply not get over it. Despite me wishing to no longer interact with my ex, as well as me dating somebody new, my ex has been trying to win me back by doing over-the-top things like sending me gift baskets, love letters, chocolates, etc., even though I blocked his number on all social media and always ignore his attempts to woo me with his gifts. He never actually interacts with me directly and never waits for me outside or tries to talk to me, but instead he just leaves me gifts at our doorstep and then runs away. It's just plain creepy and it makes me super uncomfortable. Now, my new boyfriend by the name of Cole, that's not his real name, is someone that I currently live with and doesn't actually see any issue with any of this. In fact, he says that he feels bad for my ex and doesn't want me to waste my ex's money and efforts. So I just reluctantly let Cole eat the chocolates and other crap since he insists I don't throw them out. He even likes reading the love letters even though I tell them I don't want to. I don't understand why he's so chill about this because my ex and Cole aren't even friends and they have never interacted a single time. So it makes no sense why he's okay with my ex doing these dumb gestures that he knows makes me uncomfortable and creeped out. If anything, Cole should be pissed off that someone is trying to steal his girlfriend, right? Anyways, all of this finally came to a head on my birthday. After work, I came home to our apartment decorated in balloons, chocolates, and flowers. And I'm immediately touched because I'm thinking that all of this was some kind of surprise from Cole. But no, it was way worse. Apparently, my ex came over to my place with all this crap, buzzed our apartment doorbell, and Cole actually let him in. He allowed my ex to decorate our apartment and leave gifts for me. And then my ex-boyfriend left before I could get home. Now, Cole apparently saw no issue with any of this. He literally let my ex into our apartment like it was no big deal, all because my ex came all the way there with these gifts, which was such a thoughtful gesture in his mind. And you know what? I now feel completely and totally unsafe. What if my ex secretly left a hidden camera or something like that? I have no idea why Cole is so fine with all of this. I've talked to him over and over again about this, and he just doesn't understand why I would reject free stuff from someone who cares about me. I love Cole, but the fact that he actually let my ex into our apartment was a huge breach of my trust, and I have no clue how to deal with this. So is this relationship just unsalvageable, or is there a way I can get through to Cole's head that none of this is okay? What should I do? Okay, holy crap, this is some crazy stuff. Your new boyfriend quite literally has zero concern for your safety. He's not taking any of this seriously, he doesn't see that this is a problem, and that is not okay in my opinion. Like, dude, what is going on right now? Is he seriously gonna sit there and be like, oh, come on, it's just love letters and chocolates. It's not that big of a deal, it's free stuff, come on. And that's clearly coming from a place of privilege because, come on, dude, this guy's like stalking the original poster. Are you kidding me right now? Like, I don't know about you, but would you really want to be with someone who's gonna let your crazy ex-boyfriend into your apartment to then leave you a birthday surprise with all these decorations? Which, by the way, is right after you said, hey, this guy's a creep and I don't like him. Like, for me, the answer is easy. I would probably break up with someone like this and get out of there as fast as possible. Not to mention get the police involved. Like, dude, what's going on right now? So personally, and I can only speak for myself, this is definitely not something I would ever want to stay with, nor would I ever want to live in this kind of environment because your boyfriend doesn't care about you. He doesn't care that this ex is clearly obsessing over you and trying to like follow your every move and has now officially gotten into your apartment and into your living quarters. And that's really creepy and just completely unacceptable, which I feel is a complete deal breaker. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled boomer came up to me at the self-checkout machine and demanded that I scan all of his items for him. And despite the fact that he was more than capable of doing it himself, both physically and mentally, he still came to me with this weird attitude, demanding that I do it for him. Here's what happened. Okay, so this just happened to me and I am still a bit mad about it. Okay, so I'm just minding my own business at the general manager's bullpen when an old man slowly shuffles over to me. The old man says that he needs help and I ask him, okay, what can I do for you? But this customer literally looks at me and remains silent. and instead stares at his 3 items, a dozen eggs and 2 packages of paper cupcake liners. I say to him, "Sir, this is self-checkout. I'll show you what to do for the next time." The customer then looks at me and says, "I don't want to know how to do it." But I say to him, "Well, we have 2 staff registers open," and I gesture to them over in the distance. The customer then says to me, "So you're not going to do it for me?" And I say to him, "No, this is self-checkout." He then shoots back at me and says, "So in other words, you don't want to?" Now I began to respond back by saying, "Well, I can," but he then interrupts me and says, "Well, I guess I'll go somewhere else then." And then he leaves the items behind and shuffles onward to the vestibule. Now guys, please, someone come get your grandpa. He's showing his age and being a rude idiot. He probably makes his wife do all the chores as well. I mean, he was perfectly capable of wringing himself out. Now I would have helped if he didn't make it into some kind of power play. I bet he would have jokingly asked to slide my discount card if I had interacted with him long enough. I mean, he looked like one of those customers who feels entitled to a discount just for using the self-checkout. Yeah, imagine being so entitled that you not only insult the person who's like there to possibly help you, but you also act like a complete jerk the entire time and then ask for help. And oh, my bad, actually they didn't ask for help. They demanded it and said, "Oh, so you're not gonna do it for me?" You know, as he stood at the self-checkout line. Like, dude, it is not that hard to scan your groceries. And typically it's a lot faster than having to wait in line. Like, dude, come on. So honestly, I think the original poster got really lucky here that that guy decided to walk off, because I personally would not want to deal with someone who has that bad of an attitude. My 2 entitled friends keep spoiling different things I'm trying to watch. Whether it's a movie or a video game I'm trying to play, they're always making snide remarks that ruin the experience for me. So I decided to get some petty revenge by literally returning the favor, as I ruined something for them that they were not expecting, giving me the sweet relief of finally getting back at these guys. Here's how I did it. I've known a couple of guys in a group I still regularly hang out in ever since we were in high school. It's a varied group of different kinds of people, but the 2 guys I'm talking about have stayed very consistent growing up. Now, I would say we're all geeky on some level, but my geek is more on the autistic kind who, for lack of a better word, likes to literally touch grass, whereas theirs was like the more of a super fan who would spend money on merch and internet community and that kind of thing. I don't mean that as a negative, but to describe why the setup for the issue was so frequent. Throughout the years, I've mentioned getting into some fairly new game or series or like a movie, but even if the movie was literally still in its opening weekend, these guys would have been at the premiere. So every single time, they would make some coy comment that somehow spoils something secretly just to have a little laugh with the others who know, or even just making a straight up judgment on it being a bad movie, a bad second season, or a game, or whatever it might be. Now here's the problem. I'm not that dumb and they're not very smart when it comes to those comments. If you have a coy little tone and mention something weird about a character that I like, I can deduce the entire joke. Okay, I get it, the guy that they're talking about is dying. If you give me some fan theory name, I can probably work out what the theory is about. Every single time I would tell them to stop, but every time they would say something like, "Oh, I wasn't spoiling anything," or they'll be like, "Oh, you don't know if that's what it meant," but guess what? It always is. So finally, this is where my petty revenge comes into play. One of them mentions getting a new subscription to a service just to see a series, and they are absolutely pumped about it. They've seen the first season, they say, and they still have the second season to watch as well. And this is where they say to me, "No spoilers." So I mention, "Oh wait, I've seen that show." And someone else in the room goes, "Oh, me too, the second season was great." I then say something genuinely not spoiling, where I say something like, "Oh, I love how this character looked in the second season." And when I said this guy immediately shouts, "Hey, no spoilers." And he says it with a stern look on his face. Now at this point, this wakes up a sleeper agent in me that I didn't even know that I had. I then instantly remember every stupid time he spoiled something for me. The absolute gall, I think to myself. This guy's an absolute hypocrite, so I decide to continue. Naturally, I instantly go, "What? That's not spoiling. I didn't even mention the other character that died. Oops, sorry about that." And then I list off that character's name. Well, when I did that, he was predictably mad and huffy and very offended. Everyone else was amusedly annoyed at me, and then we just kind of moved on. And I feel really petty, but honestly not regretful, because I feel like I finally got some sweet relief. Okay, me personally, I don't really mind when someone like spoils something because it doesn't really affect me that much. So this doesn't specifically apply to me in any way, but I gotta say, I can't stand people who purposefully do that just to make other people miserable. And from the sounds of it, these guys were absolutely doing that on purpose. They would go out of their way to make these snide remarks just to be like, "Oh yeah, I can't believe this person died in the movie," or whatever they're doing. Like, that's obnoxious, especially towards people who are like, "Yeah, I don't like spoilers, please stop." So I love the fact that the original poster got some revenge because these guys absolutely deserve it. An entitled old Karen tries to take a spot that I'm literally already backing my car into, as she said that she's claiming that spot and that I have to move. But what followed is probably one of the funniest series of events I've ever seen, as this lady does everything possible to try and take this parking spot. And I'm honestly still blown away by this entire situation. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened last Friday. I was driving into the city for a doctor's appointment, which would be one of my last ones right before having my new baby. My toddler was in the backseat sleeping, and since I knew the appointment would interfere with his nap time, I chose to head there early and sit in the car until it was time for my appointment. Since it is a major city, it also means annoying parking, with either street parking where half of the meters are for delivery trucks or passenger loading, and the other half for normal cars. Now there is an obviously way more expensive garage next door with tight spaces that makes taking out a young child while 9 months pregnant almost impossible. But with that being said, I was prepared to circle the block several times over for street parking simply because I had some time. Now I preferably would want parking on my driver's side, as that's the side of the street my doctor's office is on, and it'll be easier to unload my son. When I pull up, I see pretty much all the spaces are taken, including the delivery and passenger loading spots. However, there is one delivery truck blocking the very left lane, and when I get around the truck, I see there is one spot open, and this is the absolute perfect space. I then immediately get into the left lane. I line up and I put on my flashers, and I start backing in. I'm part of the way into the space when I notice a car appear in my camera and in my mirrors, and since I was confused, I decided to stop. It didn't appear that they were in the space, but instead just blocking me from proceeding to back into it. From there, I gathered that the car might be trying to claim the space, but by this point, the delivery truck had moved. But here's the thing, they were just pulling into the space itself. No blinkers, they weren't even properly aligned, just trying to rush into the space before I can finish backing in. I'm sitting there thinking, what is going on? But the next thing I know, the driver, an old lady, gets out of their car and approaches my window. She then tells me, "This is my space and I'll be taking it now." She said that she claimed it but was behind the delivery truck waiting on it to move. I then tell her, no, it doesn't work that way. I am actively backing in and you don't get to claim it just because you saw it first. She then says to me, "Well, I'm taking it." And I just tell her good luck because I'm definitely gonna wait. I know from how I'm already partly positioned in the space that she will not be able to maneuver into the space and will either have to give up or hit someone in the process. Well, sure enough, she spends several minutes trying as hard as she can to get into the space, never even getting close once. She even got where her front end was now positioned more out of the space than her back end, but because she was pulling into the space, that obviously was the opposite of what she wanted to do. From there, she decided to pull completely out of the space and into the middle lane, and this is where she lined up right next to me. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I might as well just continue to claim the spot. And also, as a side note, I had not moved even an inch the entire time that she tried to get into the space. Well, as I'm backing in again, what does she try to do? She also backs into the space. I stop once again because she is literally an inch away from taking my mirror off, and it's here that she rolls down her mirror because now it's definitely pointless for her to try and claim the spot because at this point she starts cussing at me. But at this point I just wave and I have the biggest smile on my face. Finally, after about 10 seconds, she drives away while flipping me off. And thankfully, I'm finally able to continue and finish backing into my space. And I just couldn't help to think, okay, how in the world did you think you were going to back into the space around a car that was partially in the space 2 lanes over? She would be perpendicular to the actual space itself. And even if she wasn't, there's no way my back end would not have been hit. I sat in the car for another 30 minutes before my son woke up and I took him out. All the while, no other space opened up. I did see her entering the building as I was taking my son out of his seat and putting him into the stroller. And as you can probably guess, she glared at me, but in return, I just gave her a happy, friendly wave just to be spiteful. Okay, imagine being that entitled and weird that you would actively try to stop someone from backing into a spot. Like for starters, she was probably lying about getting that spot first and being like, "Oh yeah, I was waiting behind the delivery driver." But instead, she saw you backing in and she's like, "Oh, this is my chance, let me take it." It's like, no dude, that's not how it's gonna work. If you're too stupid to find the spot, then you're definitely not getting it now. And it's hilarious because the original poster didn't have to do like anything to make this happen. They just kind of sat there and watched as this lady just struggled to park her car in any direction. Like she was all over the road and then flicked her off in the process of leaving, and then has to walk in practically at the same time into the same building. Like holy crap, at that point just find another spot. It is not that serious. So good for you for getting the win here because this entitled old lady had no business acting like that. Am I the jerk for refusing to lend my friend any money, all because I just bought something expensive for myself and I didn't want to spend anything more? Because right now I'm being guilt-tripped hard and I just don't know how to resolve this. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my friend and I have known each other ever since high school. We are close, but lately he's been asking me for money more often. Usually it's just small stuff like for lunch or for gas, and I honestly don't mind helping when I can. Last week, I finally treated myself and I bought a new phone that I've been saving up for months. I was excited, but on the same day, my friend asked if I could lend him money because he said he already used his last money for something else, and now that his bills came, he doesn't have any left to pay. Well, I told him it's not because I don't care, but I can't do it. I just spent my savings on my phone and I really don't want to get into the habit of loaning out money like that. When I said that, he immediately got annoyed and said that I was being selfish, especially since he saw me post about the phone that I just bought. I then told him it wasn't fair to guilt trip me just because I finally bought something for myself. But then he tried to do just that by saying a real friend wouldn't hesitate to help out. And now because of this, he's not talking to me anymore. Part of me feels bad because he is struggling, but it's honestly not my responsibility to keep bailing him out. So am I the jerk for saying no? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, I want to start off by saying that this guy's not your friend. He sees you as like an ATM of some kind, and that's not fair at all. Seriously, think about it for a second. The only reason this guy's coming up to you the same day that you bought a phone and posted about it is because in his head, he's thinking, oh yeah, I can finally get some more money out of this guy. He clearly has the money to spend, so why not give some of that to me? And that is so stupid. That honestly is so dumb. I'm also willing to bet he probably doesn't have any bills he's trying to pay or anything like that. He's probably just completely full of it and is instead just trying to get some free money out of you. So no, you're not the jerk because this guy is not a good friend. Am I the jerk for refusing to give up my plane seat also that a family could sit together? Because after the fact, I really feel terrible and I'm not sure if I made a mistake. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so I was flying home from a vacation and I specifically paid extra for an aisle seat towards the front of the plane. I did this because I have a bit of anxiety about flying and I need easy access to the bathroom and to deplane quickly. After I got settled, a man with a 5-year-old son approached me. He explained that his wife and other children were sitting a few rows back and he was in a middle seat in my row. He asked if I would be willing to switch seats with his wife so that they could all sit together. When he said this, I politely said no. I explained that I had paid extra for this specific seat. The man then let out a heavy sigh and say, "It's a 4-hour flight. Can't you just help my family out?" His wife then came up and started giving me a dirty look. The flight attendant eventually got involved and asked if I'd be willing to move to his wife's seat, which was a middle seat near the back of the plane. But again, I said no. And so with that, for the entire flight, I could feel them both glaring at me. The kid was crying on and off, and the parents were making loud comments about some people having no compassion. And honestly, I felt awful the entire time. I told my friend about it afterwards, and she said it was within my rights, but that it was kind of a jerk move not to help out a stressed family. I know it was inconvenient for them, but I feel like I shouldn't be made to feel guilty for wanting what I paid for. And at this point, I just don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna say this as honestly as I can. That family is completely stupid because if they wanted to sit together, they easily could have. Or they could have taken a different flight or any other different tactics instead of trying to hassle you and be like, "Oh, can you please go to the back of the plane? You know, the seat that really sucks in the back, in the middle. Go ahead and go there so my wife can sit in this better spot. Thanks, really appreciate it. Oh, and if you don't do it, we're gonna make you feel like crap." I'm sorry, the second anyone starts making snide remarks or looking at me dirty, any kind of mutual understanding goes directly out the window. Screw that, I'm not gonna be talked to like that. Especially with this guy trying to be like, "Come on, man, just move to the back of the plane." That's completely unreasonable. If he had an equivalent seat where it's okay, maybe I'm trading an aisle seat for another aisle seat, and it's still in a good part of the plane that's close to the front. If it was something like that, I'd be like, sure, let's do it. But this guy wants you to trade your really good, expensive seat for some crap seat in the back of the plane? Dude, I don't think so. So no, you're not the jerk here, you didn't do anything wrong, and the fact that these people made you feel that way is completely unacceptable. Today, I told my girlfriend that her destructive and disrespectful younger brother and sister are not allowed over at the house that I'm trying to fix up, because they literally break things every time they come over that it's literally driving me insane. But now, after I said this, she's saying that I'm being unreasonable. And at this point, I don't know if I'm being the jerk or if I'm in the wrong, because right now I just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so me and my girlfriend bought our first home about 2.5 years ago. It was a total fixer-upper, but I was willing to learn and do things do-it-yourself just to save money. Ever since then, I've poured in thousands of dollars, all of my annual leave, and endless weekends into this place. Every improvement, repair, or upgrade has been me alone. My girlfriend isn't great with money and hasn't contributed financially, and she also doesn't have the skills or interest in DIY, so I don't hold it against her. The real issue is her younger brother who's 14 years old and her younger sister who's 12 years old. Every time they come over, they are incredibly disrespectful of the house. For example, her brother once took a hammer to the porch tiles and cracked 2 of them. When I asked him if he would do this to his own house, he said no, so I told him bluntly not to do it to mine. Her parents brushed it off with, "Oh, it's only a couple of tiles," but I reminded them that their landlord pays for their repairs while I'm footing the bill and losing time. I spent ages laying a sandstone patio, and her sister dragged metal chairs across it, scratching the surface even after I told her to pick them up instead. In fact, last week, her sister begged to stay over and I agreed, but this morning I woke up to a flooded bathroom because she apparently put all her weight on a tap, bending the pipe. And now I've got water damage under recently laid floor, and my entire weekend will be spent ripping it all up and fixing it. When I said I don't want them over anymore because every visit ends up costing me time, money, and stress, I got called unreasonable. But from my perspective, I'm constantly undoing damage caused by kids who don't respect the space that I've worked so hard on. So am I the jerk for putting my foot down and not wanting them at the house anymore because right now I just don't know what to do? No, you're not being the jerk, and you're definitely not being unreasonable here. Like, dude, come on. Her siblings are destroying the property, man. This is completely unacceptable. This is not some, "Oh, you're being unreasonable. The feelings of my siblings are more important than your time, money, and stress." Like, what's going on right now? I can guarantee you if the shoe was on the other foot and you had siblings coming over destroying everything that she had worked on, she'd probably freak out as well and be like, "No, they can't come over anymore. They keep destroying stuff." So no, you're not being unreasonable. This really is a reasonable request, and the fact that anybody's giving you any kind of drama over this is incredibly weird. My crazy psychotic manager demands that I come in during my Christmas vacation, literally right as I'm about to board my plane to see my family. And when I tell him no, he freaks out, vandalizes my home, and destroys my property. And I honestly could not be more stunned. Here's what happened. This happened last year. I'm a 22-year-old male that used to work in one of the biggest restaurants in my country. And during Christmas time, it is so busy that we would make the same amount of revenue in just 1 week during December as we normally would in 3 whole months. We even have to rent out 2 whole buildings next to the main building during December due to the fact of how busy it is. Well, about 2 months in advance, I asked my manager if I could have the 2 weeks leading up to Christmas, as well as 3 days after Christmas, because I was going across the country to spend time with relatives I haven't seen in over 5 years. Surprisingly, he said yes and wrote it on his calendar. I am surprised because he usually doesn't allow time off from work, especially that long of a break during December because of the Christmas rush. But my manager has a history of telling people a day or two before their time off work that it has been revoked and that they needed to come into work today regardless. But I was just glad that I got the time off and actually called my family, telling them that I could see them for Christmas. Now fast forward to the day that I am in my car leaving to go to the airport, and you guessed it, I got the dreaded text message from my manager telling me that I needed to come into work today because it's the busiest he has ever seen the store, and the 2 extra buildings aren't even enough space for everyone, and they are very much understaffed. I told him that this would be impossible for me, as I am about to leave for the airport right now, and I got this time approved months ago. He told me that he doesn't care, and that they cannot keep up with their work demands. He even says that there's almost an hour wait just to be seen by some of these people. I told him that I am not coming in today, and you will have to find someone else to cover for me. And this is when he starts to lose it. He tells me that if I do not come into work today, that I'm gonna be fired. So I told him, go ahead, fire me. Nothing will stop me from going on my trip to see my relatives. And then I hung up the phone. He did not give up though. During the entire car ride to the airport, he just kept calling me so much that I blocked his number. He still messaged me on all of my socials, so I blocked him there as well. I then put my phone on Do Not Disturb as I got to the airport to board my plane. I thought that was the last I would hear of it, but about 2 days into my trip, I get a text message from one of my friends back in town showing me a picture of my house completely trashed. Spray paint on the front of the house, windows smashed, and my front yard completely ripped up. I was stunned. I thought to myself, who could possibly do that? Then there was a message spray painted on the front of the lawn saying that I should have come into work, and I was fuming. I unblocked my manager's number, called him up, and started started to yell at him, telling him that I am going to call the police and report him. He says that I wouldn't dare do that and then hung up again. I did end up calling the police, and they saw everything that had happened to my yard. They then asked me if I wanted to press charges, to which I said absolutely. When I got back from my trip, I claimed all of this on my insurance, and luckily they paid for all of it. I went to his court hearing in January, where he broke down, saying that he only did this because of the stress from the amount of customers that were in his store. He ended up getting 6 months in prison for his crimes. But what he said on the stand really got to me. I felt really bad in the end because I felt like I left him with all this stress during the busiest time of the year. So it begs the question, am I the jerk for leaving to go on vacation even though I got the time off? This story's absolutely crazy. This manager definitely needs some help. They actually vandalized this person's house and were stupid enough to not only expose themselves, but to basically confirm, hey, yeah, I did this. I mean, what an absolute moron. So no, you are not the jerk. These people suck. This job was horrible. You have every right to go on vacation. The fact that this manager would try to bring people in after they've called off work during the busiest time of the year is a clear sign that this guy sucks at his job. Like, if you know it's going to be busy, then you need to secure people yourself and not try to drag me off of my vacation that I reserved, by the way. So I honestly would not sweat this, because having your manager go to your house and vandalize it all because you wouldn't come into work is absolutely crazy, and there's no reason for you ever to put up with that. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for getting a colleague fired and a permanent strike on his university record? So we had just gotten back to in-person classes, and I go to a school that mostly hires students as interns to give them work experience, and each position comes with a lot of perks. I had been a residential advisor for the majority of my schooling and had finally been chosen to become the head residential advisor. I accepted this happily because it meant I got to pick my own room and could ultimately stay alone if I wanted to, and I really wanted that. Before I became head RA, I had helped everyone that approached me with an issue, even to the point where if we went to parties and we were all under the influence, I'd still be the one, even in my inebriated state, carrying people back to bed and making sure the girls weren't being touched without consent. I had even broken up cases that would have led to a lot of really bad situations. Fast forward, and I am the head RA. I am also in my final year, and if you haven't pieced it together already, I am someone who puts his all into everything that I do, and I don't like to look at things from an illogical perspective. As the head RA, I also had the task of selecting the next set of RAs. All was moving smoothly, and it was really shaping up to be a good time, apart from a few hectic cases I had to handle. Then, in October, COVID hit the campus. The country I live in has a lot of regulations on health, and they don't mess around with that stuff. I have heard of them shutting down institutions for disregarding health laws. I do not know how accurate that is, but hearing that and being the head RA meant I ultimately had to manage COVID on campus. So we started with the fact that the people who were infected were taken to isolation, and I had to make a schedule for the RAs so that food, medication, and other necessities could be delivered to people in isolation. It was a very hectic period. The numbers kept growing, and our team was way understaffed, but somehow we managed to keep it under control. Then, people I considered to be friends had to go into isolation because of contact tracing laws, and some of them had COVID-19. The same standard was followed for them, and halfway into isolation, they started breaking it by running around campus at night and all that. I kept warning them and letting them know that they couldn't do that because it could lead to us losing control of the situation, and if the Ministry of Health found out during their checks, it would be dire for the institution. One of the guys doing this also had a position with the institution and was well aware of all of this. But even if he wasn't, I had warned him multiple times. He kept breaking isolation time after time, and I kept warning him. During all this, the RAs were having mental breakdowns and were evidently struggling to keep up with the stressful situation, and I was also getting stressed out and overworked and starting to break down almost every other day. It couldn't continue like this, so I had to put my foot down. To do this, I sent a general email to the school informing everyone of the measures I would take if anyone was found breaking isolation protocols. They didn't stop, and I wasn't having it, so I emailed the medical team on campus and listed their names, as well as those who had positions of authority in the school, with all the relevant evidence I could gather, as well as sanctions of the law and code of conduct that they had broken, including witnesses and times, where I had warned them multiple times and they refused to listen. I also filed a disciplinary case against each and every one of them. It took me about 5 hours to do all of that, as I was very precise in my detailing, even making sure the timestamps were as accurate as possible. Then a friend who was in isolation broke it, and I warned him, and I told him what I would do if he did it again. He also had a position just like the others, and he broke it again. I sent him a formal warning using the school's official communications account and told him that I would take him up if he broke it again. He broke it for the third time, and I lost it when he sent me a long text message asking why I had only sent him a warning email and not the rest of the people who were also breaking isolation. So I told him that I had filed cases against them for that, and I didn't want to have to do that in his case. I told him to just stop breaking isolation, and he refused and broke it again. At this point, my back was against the wall, so I filed his own case, and I didn't spare any detail. I gave all the information I had about this, as well as screenshots and all. He even went ahead to email the medical team to report me, saying I had sidelined him and was using my position to bully him, so I did not stop at the disciplinary council case. I also emailed my manager and explained the situation to her. She put the department that managed student job positions as well as the head of the campus in a copy and went off on him. Because they all put their efforts into breaking isolation, we ended up having a lockdown, and that tripled the stress we were having during this time. They still didn't stop breaking isolation protocols, and I matched their energy by recording every single instance and making a direct report to the disciplinary committee. Fast forward to when the cases are over, and he has cut me out of his life. As far as he was concerned, I didn't exist to him, and he had gotten a bunch of other people to do the same. Personally, I didn't mind that. I also found out that the cases I filed led to a lot of other people getting expelled, some being suspended, and a lot of them having permanent reports and strikes placed on their records. I didn't feel bad or remorseful in any way. A lot of them had come to me, telling me how I had changed, and that they couldn't believe I would do this to them because they were on scholarship, and they don't know how they would ever explain all of this to their parents. And you know what? I told them good luck in the most nonchalant way I could. This kept on happening again and again. A lot of conspiracy theories also came out on how COVID was apparently just a version of the flu, and how we would just be fine. So every time someone came to me, I would always ask them, if your actions caused COVID to infect and injure another student, what would you tell their parents? And you know what? When I told them that, I never got a response back. I ended up being branded a jerk for basically ruining their degrees and future. And I really need to know, am I the jerk for getting my colleagues fired, as well as getting a permanent strike on their university record? This is a crazy story, because this literally happened in the middle of COVID-19. And I think above anything else, the way these people were acting is incredibly irresponsible. And I don't blame you for a second for deciding to report them. Friends or not, they were being extremely disrespectful, and they were doing stuff that could have injured someone who's immunocompromised and has issues with COVID-19. So no, in my opinion, absolutely not. You are not the jerk. You literally gave them so many opportunities to just stay in isolation and not go out at night. Like, they literally just had to do nothing and they wouldn't have gotten in trouble. They did this to themselves. And if I was in your shoes, I just would not feel bad about someone else's dumb decisions. And that's honestly not your problem. My boyfriend is convinced that I'm actually cheating on him when I fall asleep, and he's being an absolute jerk about it, and I don't know what to do. My boyfriend is 30 years old and I'm a 25-year-old female. He has been previously married, has kids, and was physically and mentally abused by his ex-wife. And worst of all, she cheated on him with someone close to him. Last night, he accused me of cheating when I unexpectedly fell asleep in the evening and didn't wake up for 3 hours. I woke up to see that he was calling me, and I answered the phone, and he was upset. I looked at my phone and I saw that he had texted me many times and tried calling me for many times as well. My first thought that came to mind was, oh no, this isn't going to be good. And while this isn't the first time that something like this has happened, but this incident was the worst. I knew he was not going to be happy with me. I tried to explain myself to him, and he kept questioning me, wanting to know in detail when I fell asleep and what I was doing beforehand that I was so unoccupied that I couldn't answer him. He asked me why I didn't hear my phone, and so I told him that I keep my phone on silent all the time, which is honestly the truth. I never have a ringer on or a notification sound, but he says that I'm lying. He brought up my Bluetooth earbuds. I tried to tell him that I haven't used those in a while, but again, he says that I'm lying. At this point, I'm hurt, and I'm trying to figure out what I can say to have him see that I'm innocent. So I try to reassure him by saying, I would not do that to you. You're the only man that I want. I love you so much. But all he says is, I've heard all that before from my ex who cheated on me. Why should I believe you? We went back and forth for a bit on the subject. I'm trying to reassure him that I would never cheat on him, and that I love him and that I understand his trauma, and that I want to do anything to help reassure him. He goes on to say that he's been through this before, that women have an easier time cheating on men, even going as far as to say that if he was a woman, he definitely would cheat. I asked him then, what does that say about you as a person? And he just didn't answer me. He just kept saying what he did before, and I was honestly stunned. Then the subject was changed to a date we have planned, and we went into this conversation just a little bit more. Shortly after, he does apologize to me for being unreasonable and for basically comparing our relationship to what he had with his previous wife and claiming that I was cheating. I don't remember the rest of the conversation, but he does bring up something that's absolutely ludicrous. He says, you know how you said you'd do anything to prove yourself to me? Then I want you to go work out with me. And when he said this to me, I was completely thrown off. I am considerably bigger than he is, but that was completely out of left field. I've been wanting to lose weight, and he knows that, so at first I thought it was just an innocent remark. Then I realized he might be using this to try and control my time, to make sure that I'm not cheating, even though I wouldn't do that. I'm so confused and I'm hurt as to what to do here. I know it's hard being cheated on, and that trust for anyone being taken away, but this is starting to feel like narcissistic behavior, and it's really starting to disturb me. What should I do? It does not sound like your boyfriend is being very nice in the slightest. I mean, he freaked out over you having a nap. Just imagine having children with this man. Literally, it seems like this guy is going to be up on you all the time, making sure that you're not cheating on him. I mean, the misogynistic comments this guy just made about women is really disgusting in my opinion, and is absolutely unacceptable. It also kind of sounds like maybe he's not ready for another relationship. He literally accused you of cheating on him all because you took a nap. I mean, how ridiculous is that? So overall, he's just super toxic. And if you choose to stick around with him, hopefully this all works out. Because in my opinion, his actions are a massive red flag, and it's not something I would take lightly. My boyfriend's mom is planning a dinner date for him with another girl, and I honestly don't know what to do. So I'm a 23-year-old female, and I'm currently living with my boyfriend of a little over a year while he is working, and I am preparing to take my MCAT and apply to medical schools. I have not had the easiest time navigating my post-secondary education, and as a result, I am only now preparing to work towards my goal of becoming a doctor. I come from a family where not many of us go to college. Neither of my parents have a bachelor's degree. I am lucky enough to have completed my bachelor's after attending community college, and up until meeting my boyfriend, I felt as if I had done pretty well for myself and was pretty proud of my accomplishments. This hasn't set well with my boyfriend's mom though, who emphasized from a young age that her children succeed academically and enter lucrative careers. He did go to a top university and is now starting his very good job, and so I know she feels as if he could do better than me. They fought a lot in the beginning of the relationship, and I thought things had been smoothed over for the most part, and she had become more accepting of me once we moved in together. After today, however, I'm feeling very depressed. I overheard a phone call that they had with each other where she told him that there's a daughter of a family friend who is interning in our city, and she set them up for dinner. She kept saying how this girl is very, very nice and pretty, which I feel shouldn't have been relevant to the conversation if it was only supposed to be for networking. I can only assume she is still looking for better matches for him, even though he is literally in a relationship and lives with me. Although the people of my culture are not the most financially successful, they are full of love and compassion, and I have been missing that dearly. I want to be part of a family that will appreciate me for the love I give to their son, and not one that only cares about what status or money I bring to the relationship. I believe this part of my background is one of the main reasons my boyfriend loves me, and it's because of the warmth and affection I have been able to show him that he hasn't experienced from his family or peers. I do love my boyfriend, but I don't know if I want to feel like I am less than him to the most important people in his life until I finally achieve my career goals, which will take at least 8 years. Has anyone ever dealt with something like this before? What should I do? It is very unfortunate that this original poster has to deal with this from their boyfriend's mom. It really is toxic and completely unnecessary. I think think this lady needs to remind herself that, hey, this girlfriend is going to be a doctor. Like, that's a very prestigious career if that's really what they value. And eventually, a lot of money can come in because of that job. So it's really weird that she would try to set up her son with another woman. And if I was in your shoes and I overheard that conversation, I would definitely go to my boyfriend and be like, hey, what's going on? I overheard that your mom's trying to set you up with another woman. You're not going along with this, are you? Or even a conversation along those lines, where you just check in with them and see how things are going and what's actually going on with this dinner or this networking opportunity. Maybe even express to him your concerns about his mom and how she, as well as the rest of his family, just don't respect you in the way that you would want them to. If anything, they really are just being jerks, and that's not fair for you at all. So if you choose to go that route in addressing this, hopefully it goes well, because it sounds like you really do love your boyfriend, and I honestly don't blame you for wanting to be on good terms with his extended family, especially if you two end up getting married together, because anything less than that really could be a nightmare for the rest of your marriage. My girlfriend wants to talk to my ex, and I'm not sure what to do. So after some drama with some text messages, my girlfriend of 6 months has decided that she would like to speak to my ex-girlfriend, who I was in a long-term relationship with for about 3 years. My ex and I are currently no contact, aside from one singular happy birthday message, mostly because I did not handle things in the best way, and my ex has no respect for my relationship with my current girlfriend, and she only respects her in so much that my girlfriend is a human being and gets that basic crumb of decency. Typically, my ex is an acquired taste. She is very blunt, dry, and sarcastic, but she isn't one of those people who is just mean and uses "I'm blunt" as an excuse. Once you get to know her, it's so easy to see why she is so many people's go-to person. She is one of the kindest, most fiercely loyal individuals I have ever known. Don't get me wrong, she definitely has some issues, which is one of the reasons I think this is a bad idea, but you get the picture. My girlfriend, on the other hand, is very sweet-natured and funny, but her autism means that she takes absolutely everything at face value. You cannot joke with her unless it's super blatantly obvious, and sarcasm is a hard no, because it goes straight over her head. By her own admission, she is as dumb as soup, although this isn't a mutual thought, just to clarify. To give a brief overview of the scenario, my ex-girlfriend and I were together for 3 years, and then 2 on and off, but we were not seeing other people. My friend set me up with my current girlfriend, and after our first date was a success, I immediately ended things with my ex. I do not have any recollection of how I told my ex-girlfriend about my current girlfriend, because I was completely under the influence. My ex was obviously hurt by the way I did it, because she refused to talk to me about it and has only ever said that what I did was straight up gross. My ex's friends definitely consider me to have cheated on her. In fact, our former mutual friends all took her side and think that what I did was gross. She herself, to the best of my knowledge, doesn't see me as having cheated, but she does feel betrayed. For clarity, I had been telling my ex for a few months that we were just friends, and I was single, and I could do what I wanted. From the time my current girlfriend and I started dating, up until about 8 weeks ago, my ex and I spoke a few times a week. I went no contact with her before the birthday message because she overstepped and disrespected my girlfriend too many times, and it was more than enough for me to not be okay with it. I'm not sure if my current girlfriend knew I was still in contact with my ex because I never expressly told her. When I asked my girlfriend tonight why she wanted to talk to my ex, she said that she wanted to do it to better understand me and just to understand what is going on there. But she itched her nose, which is what she always does when she's telling the truth or the whole truth. I tried to suggest that talking to my ex might not be the best idea, and my girlfriend blew up at me in the same way that she did when she found my ex's response to the birthday message I'd sent her. I'd really love some advice on what to do in the situation. Should I let my girlfriend reach out to my ex and speak with her? What should I do? It was probably the biggest mistake of your life to literally let your ex back into your life. What a terrible decision. You really should have kept that no contact going, because now you're literally just causing rifts in your relationship, and this is all literally just self-imposed problems. Like, why on earth would you message your ex in the first place? No contact means no contact. You're literally risking your own relationship just to try and say happy birthday to somebody who feels betrayed by your actions. And you know what? Your ex has a point. What you did to her is really terrible. So if anything, I think the original poster really is the jerk in this situation. It seems like they're trying to keep their ex on the hook, and it just is not fair for them. So if anything, I think it's time to just let her go and focus on your current girlfriend, because from the sounds of it, she's not happy with you. And I think it's time to do what you need to do to retain that relationship and not let it fall by the wayside. My entitled mother ruined ruins my 20th birthday by making my birthday her personal girls' night out, and I honestly could not be more upset. Here's what happened. So, when I turned 20, she wanted to take me out for my birthday, and by God, it was one to remember in the worst ways. To set the stage a little, my mom had me at 16, and I'm convinced that she got stuck with a 16-year-old mentality because she's still like a teenager to this day. At the time, my mom had monthly girls' nights where she and her friends would go out to the bars and just let loose. My mom doesn't have the greatest friends out there. They're all just loud and ready to fight people at any given moment. Just like some guests on Jerry Springer, I wasn't really a big partier, and I would have been happy with a simple dinner. The weekend of my birthday rolls around, and my mom said she was going to take me out. I was super stoked, and I wanted to invite some friends, as one normally does for their birthday. Instead, she told me I could not invite any of my friends, but she did invite 2 of my cousins, as well as 2 of their friends. So it was just me, my mom, and a bunch of dudes that I wasn't particularly close with, outside of my cousins. I didn't really know any of the other people. She took us on a surprise journey to wild and wonderful West Virginia, the land of good times. On the way, my mom stopped at a liquor store and grabbed some Tequila Rose airplane bottles and a bottle of Captain Morgan spiced rum for my cousins and the rest of the company. This would have been cool, but I wasn't allowed to drink because I wasn't 21. The math wasn't adding up on this day. We stopped at Chili's, which I really liked because there wasn't one where I lived, and we met up with, of course, my mom's lunatic friends. At this point, I pieced together that my mom was making my birthday her girls' night. She was basically taking out 2 birds with 1 stone. So we leave Chili's and she drops me, my cousins, and their 2 friends off at an under 21 club, while my mom and her super great friends go to some other bar called Cowboy Up. Yeehaw, I guess. Anyway, I go into this club where my cousins and their friends abandoned me and go do their own thing. So I'm literally just in the middle of this weird hole-in-the-wall sketchy club in West Virginia. I am super over it pretty quickly, so I leave the club, which told me I could not re-enter, and I was honestly fine with that. If I'm taken out by some country folk, then that's just how I'm gonna go out at this point. I try calling my mom, who keeps ignoring my calls, until I leave a voicemail saying if she doesn't come and get me, I'll just have my dad come and get me instead. He wasn't fully aware of this journey because she immediately called back and left Cowboy Up. My mom has some really bad anger issues, so when she pulled up, she was raging. This woman stood in the parking lot screaming at me and getting in my face, saying that I ruined her night out with her friends. And I was yelling back because I was so hurt and confused, and honestly just super upset. Things escalate from there, where her friends start screaming at me saying I should respect my mother. But you know what? I told them to shut up and mind their own business. Eventually, we get back in my mom's car and I just want to go home. And you would think that the night ends here, but it doesn't. It truly was a gift that just kept on giving. She takes me and her friends to another really shady club. And at this point, I was once again abandoned. My cousins and company had the time of their lives. My mom and her friends disappeared into another club, and I just so happened to see a girl I went to high school with. So it was nice to at least have some kind of familiar face. Eventually, I just called my friend to come get me. We lived maybe about an hour from West Virginia, and she was a real one because she picked me up, and I just cried on my way home with a mixture of anger and hurt. These days, I'm no contact with my mom, and I honestly think that's the best thing for the both of us. How crazy is that? Your mom literally ruined your birthday and was overall just a terrible mother in general. She wouldn't even let you invite your friends over to have a good time with you on your birthday. I mean, that's just so toxic, and it's so unnecessary in my opinion. So good for you for moving on past your mom, because from what you described, this lady sounds very unhinged, and I think you're right. She really is an adult with a 16-year-old mind, so I don't blame you for cutting her out of your life. My barber of almost 4 years decided to cut me off out of nowhere, and I'm really offended, and I honestly don't know what to do. My barber was the best hair person I'd ever found. He did an amazing job. I was his loyal customer for almost 4 years. I followed him through location changes, I recruited friends to go, and after the pandemic, I went to support his new shop. He provided such good service. He would tell me how his business struggled. He also briefly showed me how he ranks his clients. He notes if they tipped and whether they buy something. I always gave him $60 for a $28 haircut, partly because of the ranking, but mostly because he's an amazing barber and I appreciated his service. He was the only other gay man that I knew. I know we just had a client-customer relationship, but we bonded and shared experiences, and I began to see him not as a mentor, but maybe as a confidant. It's hard not having gay people around for community, not to mention dating and all of that. Our Our last appointment was 8 months ago. He did my cut, then he tried to set me up with someone, which he'd never done before. He described an older man who owned an art gallery. He asked me how I felt about dating someone a little bit older than me. I told him that if I was to date, I'd probably prefer someone around 30 or so. My barber is married, and I don't know if they're open or not. I don't know if he was actually talking about a friend or possibly his partner or himself. Well, I tried to reschedule and he kept declining my appointments. He had spaces open, but they were always declined. I called, I texted him, nothing. I asked in the comments for him to email on what's going on, but I still got nothing. A few months go by and he returns my text with a very generic message stating that he has too many clients to see and he's sorry that he can't continue seeing everyone. It was strange because he didn't just tell me, but declined my appointments over and over without a word. When he finally shut down for the pandemic, he referred me to someone else. Not even a referral this time. This deeply hurt my feelings. I know he's just my barber, but I thought we were friends. It's not that he dropped me as a client, but it's how he did it. I felt my years of very intentional loyalty were very disrespected. I think it has something to do with the guy he was trying to set me up with, but I honestly can't be sure. This really has me upset. He texted me last night, and then all of a sudden he's saying that he's having a hard time and he's trying to bring back old clients, and I just could not believe that he had the nerve to do that. I am very hesitant to return to him because I don't know when he'll just kick me to the wayside once again. This whole thing really hurt my feelings. I thought we were friends, but I guess that just was not the case. I feel like a fool. I'll never tip someone that much again, that's for sure. Should I respond to his text message, or should I just block him altogether? I did leave a negative review of his business online, but I deleted it a moment later. He meant a lot to me, and I'm hurt over this whole thing. And I know it sounds silly, but I just don't know what to do. That barber sounds like an absolute jerk. First off, you were paying $60 for a $28 haircut? That is literally way too much money for a haircut, not even including the money you're using as a tip. This guy clearly must have been doing like the best job you've ever seen ever in the world, because for me, there's no way on earth I would ever pay that much for a tip. And I really think this is a case where you thought you had something with this guy that just was not there. And I do think you're right. I think this absolutely has to do with the guy that he was trying to set you up with, and when it didn't go as planned, he basically said, I gotta get rid of this guy, which is basically what he did. So I think you learned a valuable lesson in that you don't really know this guy and you really can't call him your friend, no matter how much money you put in his pocket. At the end of the day, he was just a barber, and he was the one to basically get rid of you and say you should go somewhere else. So I honestly don't blame you for feeling hurt, and I think it's in your best interest to just go find someone else to cut your hair, because this guy is toxic and you really should not have to put up with that. My mother is dumping her emotional baggage on me, and I feel guilty for setting boundaries, and I'm not sure what to do. In 2015, I moved away from home to go to college, and that's when I started to talk and text with my mom daily. She insisted that we do this, and I already felt guilt for leaving home, so I just went along with it. We still talk daily, and it's been about 7 years since that day. The problem is that she treats me as her personal therapist, or even a spouse, and not her daughter. I don't mind spending 15 minutes every day talking to her, but I do mind the constant complaints. Also, she tells me everything about herself, my father, my brother, aunts, uncles, literally everything about everyone. I wouldn't mind if she sometimes complains, but she has done this daily for 7 years. My father was incredibly abusive, mostly mentally abusive, and I understand that she struggled a lot because of him, but that is not my fault. She can get divorced, and she can get professional help. Healthcare is free where she lives, by the way, and she has friends, 2 sisters, and a mother that she can also talk with, but she never goes to those people, and it always goes to the fact that she goes to me instead of anyone else. This drains my energy and ruins my mood every day. If I try to point this out to her, she either says that I should just not think about that and that she is just venting, or she says that she will stop telling me everything, which somehow makes me feel guilty. Today, we texted early in the morning, and she kept talking about my brother, as well as his thesis that he's working on, and how he could not pick a topic for it. And this is literally how I start my day almost every day for the past decade. I finally told her that I can't keep going on like this, and that maybe it's time for me to deal with my own problems for once. She said that she thought this is how family works, but if I don't want to hear about it, then she just won't tell me anymore. It's been a few hours and I still feel guilty. I don't want her to stop telling me everything. I just want us to have some boundaries, and I want her to understand that I don't need to know about every single detail in everyone's life. I have no idea what to do or say next. I'm lost and I'm angry and I'm scared, mostly that she won't talk to me again because she is extremely stubborn and never forgives anything. What should I do? This is a tricky situation because I think it's obvious that the original poster really does have a lot of sympathy for their mom. They want to be there for them and they want to have some kind of relationship with them, which is probably why they kept up this type of situation where they are literally hearing about everybody's details all the time for over 7 years. That's a crazy long time to put up with this type of stuff and this type of gossip, which honestly would wear down just about anybody. So the fact that you're finally setting boundaries is really a good thing in my opinion. If it's bothering you that much and you really do need to take a step back and say, whoa, I don't like this anymore, then that's something that you need to do for your well-being. Unfortunately though, you can't really control how other people react. When you set up boundaries and people freak out, then just know that it's not your fault. You are not responsible for them having a problem with your boundaries. You've expressed that this makes you uncomfortable, and you've said, hey, I don't want to be a part of this type of talk anymore, and I want to scale this back and have a normal relationship. And if she wants to be stubborn and say, okay, I just won't tell you anything anymore, then it's okay in my opinion to just let her do that. I would say still reach out to your mom because clearly you love her and you want the best for her, but maybe just keep it to what's going on in her life instead of what's going on in other people's lives. Because I totally agree with the original poster. This really would drain somebody's mood and ruin their energy for the day. And it sounds like the original poster is also really sympathetic for other people. So it seems like they just carry the weight of this knowledge all day, every day. And that has got to be exhausting. So hopefully the relationship between you and your mom works out, because I really don't think what you did is that bad in my opinion. And I think hopefully she will eventually come around and be able to have some kind of conversation and relationship with you. My neighbors use our trash can against our knowledge and get upset when it gets tipped over and raided by a bunch of black bears, demanding that we clean up the trash that they caused. And I honestly could not be more annoyed. Here's what happened. This happened a few years ago, but I was reminded of it recently. So the place I live is both strangely suburban and rural at the same time. It's 30 minutes from a major city, but completely forested, which means there is tons of wildlife. Deers, raccoons, rabbits, possum, coyote, cougars, and important for this story, black bears. Everyone in our neighborhood knows not to put out our garbage cans too early because the bears will knock them over and drag the garbage around. Because of my schedule, I had to put them out the night before, but I had bungee cords to keep them shut and always put my cat's litter on top of the garbage. Weird fact, bears hate the smell of cat urine. I honestly don't know why, but it's worked for years. The cans never get tipped over. A few years ago, a young couple moved in next door. Their front yard area is unfortunately the bear highway, and trash gets dragged through it constantly. It's annoying, but I figure it's the price you pay to live in a forested area. But their yard is covered in something like ivy, and it's difficult for me to walk on. A few weeks after they move in, I get an angry call that a bear dragged my trash through their yard, and I had to come clean it up right now. I was home that day, and I went to go clean it up. I thought it was weird though, because they never messed with my cans before. I was cleaning and thinking to myself, yeah, this is definitely my trash. But then I start finding things I didn't recognize. I started seeing wrappers for things that I know that no one that I live with eats. I found bones with chicken carcasses on it. And what finally made me say, oh no, this is not mine, was when I found a bag of soiled diapers. This literally was not my garbage, and the new neighbors had just had a baby. So whose garbage do you think it was? It was then that another neighbor told me what they saw while I was cleaning. We are surrounded by nosy, gossipy neighbors. You can't see them, but that doesn't mean they aren't watching. It's pretty creepy, but sometimes it works to my advantage. Apparently, the new neighbors hadn't gotten their garbage service activated yet, so they waited until we put ours out, then stuffed their trash in it. They did not bother to restrap the cans shut either. So instead of smelling like kitty litter, our trash literally smells like baby garbage and chicken, which the bears appeared to love and spilled our trash, then dragged it into the new neighbor's yard, which they demanded that I clean up. I was upset, but I cleaned up what trash could have come from my household. I did leave the bag of dirty diapers. My schedule has changed, so now I can put my cans right out before the garbage men come, or I just skip the week. The funniest part to me was the bears dragged a bunch of trash into the neighbor's yard one week, and they called to yell at me that my my trash was in their yard. I had just gotten a COVID booster and was feeling awful, but I felt just a touch better when I hung up on them and sent them a text message with a picture showing all my trash cans, partly full and still sitting in the secure fenced area they reside in most of the week. It had just snowed too, so it was clear the cans hadn't been disturbed, except for the snow I dumped off the top to open them. So maybe next time they can pay for their garbage and they can learn to put their own cans out and deal with their own garbage. Some people are literally just toxic. These new neighbors thought they'd try and push one past the goalie and literally tried to stuff their garbage into your trash cans. And all the while, they just disrupted the entire situation and made it so the bears could get in the trash and make things a lot worse for everybody involved. So this is literally just a self-imposed problem. So if anything, hopefully these neighbors learn their lesson, that they quite literally need to keep their trash to themselves. My sister asked me to pay her husband back $10,000 for previously taking me into their home for 2 months before, and I don't know what to make of this situation or what to do. I grew up in an abusive family, and I only got away from them after a lot of hardship. I met my chosen sister shortly before I moved out, and I believe that she was a miracle the universe gave me in my darkest times. She took me in for 2 months when I was deep in depression and wasn't able to hold my job personally. I look up to her a lot, and I admire her kindness, her grit, and her strength. While I was living with her, whenever her husband was there, he would always make weird jokes about me paying them back, but I never thought much of them. Recently though, I bought them tickets to a game they're both crazy about as a token of gratitude. Her husband once again jokingly said I still owed them and that he would collect the debt later on. I suspected that at this point he was just being passive aggressive, but now I know the real reason why he kept up with the comments. She just called and told me that she's really sorry, but that I needed to compensate her husband for my stay, that he's the sole provider and the house they lived in was his, and everything else was provided by him. She then told me that she lied to me so that I wouldn't feel uncomfortable, but that now he was demanding I compensate him. She said that he's been holding this over her head the whole time. I was shocked, but still calmed her down and told her that it's not her fault at all and apologized for putting her in such a difficult position. I asked her how much he was demanding, and she said he wanted $10,000. She said that there was this company he was founding, and they needed the money to get things going, and that she would also benefit since she would be a partner as well. She then asked if I could get it to them sooner than later. I was honestly shocked. I only stayed for 2 months, and I pitched in for groceries and bills by borrowing money from other friends at the time. And right now, even if I had a high-paying job, how on earth am I supposed to afford that kind of money? I had just paid back my debts and rent for this month, and I bought them the gift and only have enough money to eat. I tried to politely point out that the amount of money was ridiculous, and I asked her how much rent in her area costs. She said that people wouldn't be able to live in that area, even if they wanted to, because of how much in demand it is. She said she knew this was an unreasonable amount, and she really didn't intend for me to pay her back at the start, but she's sorry, they really needed the money, and that I shouldn't have wasted money on the tickets, as they're not a priority. I honestly respect her a lot, and I didn't want to keep pushing, and promised her to figure it out and not to worry. But I still feel like a lump is stuck in my throat, as though I've been severely punched in the gut. Where do I go from here? What should I do? These people are trying to rip you off. Legitimately, this chosen sister, as you call her, is absolutely just a pawn in this guy's game. He really wants you to pay $10,000 for staying 2 months in their home? I don't think so. And it doesn't sound like you signed any kind of document saying that you agreed to that amount. I mean, do these people live in the most expensive city on earth or something? In what universe would one person staying for 2 months at somebody's house cost anybody $10,000? You can probably even go through your bank statements and possibly document all the times you helped with groceries and bills. That way you can basically prove, hey, no, I really did help out when I lived there. But $10,000, that is a joke. And if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would pay that amount. In my opinion, your chosen sister is a coward, and her husband is obviously desperate for money. And in my opinion, I would absolutely separate myself from these people completely. They are not family, and I guarantee you, this lady does not reciprocate that same ideology of calling you her chosen sister. They are clearly trying to take advantage of somebody in a really weird situation, and that just so happens to be you. I mean, at most, I would tell her that you could pay back rent for that area, but I guarantee you it's not $10,000. So hopefully this works out, because these people do not sound like good people in the slightest, and I think you can find a lot better chosen family members by by getting away from these absolute jerks. An entitled Karen steals my Walmart pickup order, forcing me and my spouse to sit in the parking lot for minutes on end while the Walmart employees try and fix the problem. Eventually, this entitled Karen comes back to the parking lot and demands to speak to a manager, and things really started to pop off from there. Here's what happened. So, since we don't like shopping, we have been enjoying the online ordering option at Walmart. What's not to like? You pick what you like, you pay for it, they pick it, they bag it, and you just roll in and pick it up. Today, however, this doesn't go as smoothly as it has in the past few years, and we have used this service a lot. As I said, I put in the order and selected a pickup time. My wife and I roll in and park in space number 4. Then I inform them that I am in a blue vehicle in space 4 with the application. Other cars are already there, and other cars roll in after we get there, and the wife and I are just chatting along with the news of the day, as well as what the grandchildren have gotten up to lately. Finally, someone knocks on our door and asks what the name of the order is. I say my name, and the associate frowns and says, "I'll be right back." Thinking that this wasn't all that unusual, my wife and I go back to chatting as if nothing's wrong. About a minute later, a manager comes out to us and asks if we are sure of the order name. So after that, I pull out my phone and I show them the application. However, the app is showing us that the order was already picked up. It turns out that the silver SUV in space number 3 was approached by the Walmart staff, and they asked for my name and checked if they were picking up their order, and the entitled Karen just waved towards the back and said, "Go ahead and load it up, please." The Walmart staff apologized and said that they're going to repick the order as a priority, and they'd be out as soon as possible. 30 minutes later, a certain SUV pulls back up into the spot, and the woman slips into Karen mode and starts demanding a manager. The manager comes out and they chat for quite a while. Being the nosy people that we are, we listen in. And you know what? She's upset. She's ticked off that they totally screwed up her order. But the manager says that they asked them what their name was, and they just waved to load the stuff into the car. So naturally, the Walmart worker just assumed that they were us. It was honestly just an honest mistake on the part of the Walmart staff, given the information that they had. This entitled Karen is now demanding that they give her back her correct order. There are, however, a few problems with this. First of all, since they didn't make their pickup slot, since they didn't pick up as themselves, the order was returned to stock. And to top it all off, the entitled Karen didn't even bring back the incorrect items. Arguments go back and forth for a little bit, and while this is going on, they bring out our hastily repicked groceries, as well as a $50 gift card as a way of apologizing. Thus, we were restocked and we decided to drive away, and we never found out what happened with the entitled Karen against this Walmart manager. How crazy is that? You show up at the assigned time so you can pick up your groceries, only to have some weird entitled Karen steal it basically right from underneath you. And I absolutely know the type of person who would just wave it over and tell the Walmart employees just to load it up without actually looking at it. Because unfortunately, especially at Walmart, you run into people like that all the time. And worst of all, this lady didn't even bring back the food. Like, you can't even expect to have any kind of refund if you don't even bring back the item that is incorrect. And on top of that, it's groceries. And with some of the food there that's probably easily spoiled, I would be very surprised if they would even let that be returned. Probably for some legal reason with Walmart. The last thing they want is for some customer to get sick over some food that was returned by a customer who didn't like it. So they probably would not have even taken those groceries back in the first place. But even then, at least put it in the car and bring it with you. Like, what are you thinking? So it sounds like the original poster got out with a better deal. They got their groceries and they got some entertainment, and they got a $50 gift card as an apology, which in my opinion, considering all that happened, that makes the wait as well as everything else that went down kind of worth it. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for deciding not to stay in contact with my brother, as well as the rest of his family, simply because he's been so toxic over the course of my life? Here's what happened. For some backstory, we had a typical brotherly relationship. Not super tight, but we would get along just fine, and knew we always had each other's back. I moved to another state away from my family home. I finished college, and I had managed to land a decent job in IT. I had also been in a good relationship with my wife for several years, at the point where I had found out something about my little brother. We will call him John. That's not his real name. John had been living on his own back in the state where we grew up for a couple of years, but hard times fell on him, and he planned to move back into our parents' house. I pulled some strings for him and got him a guaranteed job at my workplace. He would just need to move out here where I live for the job. I did this because I felt like my parents' house was very toxic, and I wanted to provide some kind of escape for him. Eventually, he made the decision and he moved out here for the job, and I had him stay with me and my wife. I only started charging rent when he had a stable income for a couple of months, but I arranged the rent in a way to encourage him to getting back out there on his own. The plan was that in 6 to 9 months, he would be in his own place, as my wife and I are relatively secluded people and liked our own space without other people. Now, my wife does have OCD and high anxiety, so there are some disagreements between my wife and John, but at some point, it seemed he was actively trying to sour my relationship with my wife. Thankfully, shortly after a rock-bottom fallout between my brother and my wife, as well as causing serious issues in the relationship with my wife, John moved out to rent an apartment with a work friend. He stayed there a while, then moved into another work friend's basement apartment. During that time, he managed to find a girl and convince her to marry him. John and his wife managed to buy a house together and started right away in growing a family. They had their first son, and John's wife believed that my wife and I should be a steady part of their children's lives. My wife and I didn't have children of our own. We didn't ever plan on having any and still don't. So when my wife and I would spend time with John's kid, we did tend to enjoy it quite a bit. We ended up forming a nice bond with the little guy. About 1.5 years into the kid being born, my mother had passed away, and she was set to leave the house to split between myself, John, and 2 other siblings. Now, one of these 2 other siblings, this one being my older brother, has had some mental breakdowns and wasn't living a mentally healthy lifestyle. I believed he wanted to keep the house and continue to live in it. Now, I didn't have a problem with him getting the house to himself, as I didn't really care about the inheritance, but I didn't want my older brother, we'll call him Steve, that's also not his real name, to continue to live in that house. I believed it would not be ideal for Steve to move on with his life after my mother's passing. Steve had been living with my mother in her house since he got out of the military, which was over 15 years ago. I knew the emotional trauma that went on in that house. My mother was manipulative. She was a self-serving woman who for the last 20 years just wanted to pass away. It was not a healthy environment at all. So when my mother did pass away, I explained that I wanted no part in keeping the house or converting it into a duplex of any kind. If my other brothers wanted to do that, then they could, but I didn't want any part of it. At this point, just assuming the equity in the house was being split between us 4 ways. Shortly after my mother passed away, Steve had another mental breakdown. This was pretty much what I didn't want to happen, so I pushed him to have the house cleaned up and a lot of the junk moved out so it could be sold. At this point, I had let Steve know that if he just wanted to use the house as equity for him to buy another house, that was fine. But since my older brother Steve had intended to keep the house and keep living in it, Steve didn't like that, and he didn't like that I was pushing for it to be sold, with John eventually coming in and backing him up on this issue. This led to some arguments between us with some yelling being done. I'm pretty sure they believed I was just after the money from the house, even though I told them I didn't care about the money and I thought it would be best for Steve to move to a different house and start a new life that wasn't tied into all the trauma from that house. And this all happened while John was out in our home state with Steve. I had remained at my home state to work. We were arguing over the phone. Eventually, we ended up hanging up very angry with each other. After John finished up helping Steve get settled down, especially after his mental breakdown, he returned back to our home state. I invited John over so we could at least talk things over. When he came over, we argued some more, and I ended up just giving up on my intention of having Steve leave the house. I told John that Steve could do whatever he wanted with the house and made sure that he understood I was staking no claim on that house. But in the conversation with John, I learned he had been talking garbage about me behind my back with my coworkers at my new job. A lot of them John knew from our previous job, as we worked in a fairly niche sector of IT. John had gotten let go from that previous job that I had gotten him and was working at a sparsely related IT company where he could use his skills he learned. Anyways, when he told me what he had been saying to them, calling my wife horrible names and claiming that he was worried about me, I knew at that moment he had been planting the seeds to try and manipulate me some more towards splitting up with my wife. So I got angry with him, not only for talking to my coworkers about me behind my back, but also for still trying to ruin the relationship between myself and my wife. I started yelling at him, saying things like, "How dare you meddle with my work?" as well as "How could you do this?" He eventually did not like the fact that I was yelling, and he stormed out, getting in any last digs he possibly could. He then unfriended me on all social networks, blocking me completely, as well as doing everything else in his power to stop communication, like not accepting phone calls and stuff like that. At this point, I was pretty attached to his kid, so I offered to John to talk to a therapist to try and sort out these things. It took about 5 months, but eventually, my 2 other brothers convinced John to talk it out in therapy. In therapy, he pretty much said he hated my wife, even though my wife put up with his shenanigans while he lived with us. We even offered to help with a down payment for him to buy his own home while the getting was good. She helped him with his job hunt after he was let go from the job I got him. He wouldn't let go that he just hated my wife. He also let it out that he didn't like me, but he would be willing to let us visit his kid. Well, at that point, he hated my wife and he didn't like me, and I did not want to subject myself or my wife to the mental games of someone who is just letting us have a relationship with his kid. So I gave up on the therapy, and I haven't talked to my brother, seen his kid or his new kid, or had anything to do with him for the past 4 years. Recently, John has invited me to spend dinner with him, my older brothers, his wife, and his kids, just to see if we can try and mend things up. The problem is, I don't trust John. He said in a voicemail to me that he wouldn't have cut me out of his life unless I did something to warrant it, but I just don't understand what I did to warrant this type of treatment in the first place. I don't want to emotionally invest in him or his family again, or just to get hurt again. So I don't really plan on accepting the invitation, and I don't plan on going. But it begs the question, am I the jerk for not going? I don't think the original poster is a jerk at all. It honestly sounds like John is a massive jerk. He literally hates you and your wife for no good reason, and it's just not fair for you at all. You've done so much to try and help him out. You even welcomed him into your home. Like, you did not need to do that. And you even helped him out when he was trying to look for another job. The way he's acting and the way he's trying to spin this is incredibly manipulative. And if anything, that therapy session that you know about is a perfect insight into how he actually feels. I think you can still have some kind of relationship with him, but I think you know now what to expect. And you can at least have your guard up and say, okay, you can be back in my life, but you're only getting this close to me and my family, because the way he's acting is absolutely unacceptable. And unless there's some kind of evidence to prove that he's not this toxic piece of garbage anymore, then I really would have my guard up and be very cautious in my decisions moving forward. Am I the jerk for not warning my coworker about a crazy customer who was coming into his department? So this occurred when I worked at one of the big indoor lumber yards that was really just a big box store. I was working there part-time on the late shift for spending money, and this was my second job. One day, I see what would today be called a male Karen. We'll call him Kevin. He comes into my section of the store. We know this guy very well, and he would ruin your night every time he came in. I quickly text my girlfriend that he's here, and I'm going on break, and she's gonna join me outside to smoke. I'm out there for no more than a minute when my supervisor calls me that a customer needs help, and no one can be found. I reluctantly walk back inside, knowing that it was Kevin. I get in there, and Kevin needs help deciding which barbecue he should buy. And with knowing that this guy is notoriously very cheap and will probably just return it, I suggest a moderately low-priced unit. He bites, and I load it onto his cart, and he leaves off to another department. I breathe a sigh of relief as he walks into electrical, which is right next door to my department. Almost immediately after he is out of my sightline, I hear him yelling at a coworker. Now, I could have gone over there and try and helped out and calmed down whatever it was. I could have called for a supervisor. I could have told security to go over there. If you haven't realized it yet, I did nothing. Kevin was notorious for having full-on meltdowns and temper tantrums just because a product wasn't on the front of the shelf. If it was out of stock, then you need to stand clear, because Kevin was going to tell you exactly how to run a store, all while calling you every nasty name in the book. And God help you if the product he wanted was discontinued. As I said, a nightmare customer. And to top it all off, he's a regular. I don't remember the conversation I overheard in the next aisle, but I do remember my coworker telling Kevin to F off. It was at that moment that I heard the unmistakable sounds of a fight. I ran around the corner and I screamed for my manager. I then made a call that they were fighting in the aisle. I tried to rush in to break them up, but it was too late. Kevin managed to pick up my coworker and slam him into the shelves. Seeing me, Kevin tried to run down the aisle, only to be clotheslined by security, who detained him on the spot. I never in my life have seen handcuffs put on that fast. My coworker was taken away with a fractured skull and a couple of broken bones. He ultimately wasn't fired, but did decide to quit. He blamed me for not intervening earlier and not warning him that Kevin was around. Most of my coworkers didn't didn't agree with him, but I still felt really guilty. Management did end up scolding me after they reviewed the security footage, saying that me running into the aisle the way I did could have ended badly should Kevin had come for me. I was given a week off with pay for having witnessed all of that, and that was also my first experience with lawyers. Kevin ended up getting arrested, and this not being his first offense, was jailed and forced to pay for damages. It made it to court as Kevin refused to accept any kind of deal, and I was called in to testify. My coworker pulled me aside after Kevin was found guilty of all charges and gave me a huge hug. He said that my testimony about his character was amazing. Kevin, having been charged with prior assaults, was sentenced to 15 years in jail. The court also seized his property to pay for damages, and the worst part about it is that his wife and kids were nearly made homeless, all because of his actions, and had to go on welfare just to get through it. I only know this because she was seeking out my former coworker to get him to stop the courts from seizing their property. So with all things in consideration, I really need to know, am I the jerk for not intervening sooner, or even warning my coworker about who was coming around the corner? This is going to sound really polarizing, but I don't think you're the jerk in this situation. Dealing with customers like that is absolutely toxic, and it really does suck. And it's something that you just really don't want to deal with, but unfortunately, in that line of work, you kind of have to. I think if anything, your coworker has to blame himself for swearing at Kevin in such a way. Honestly, I'm surprised Kevin hadn't been banned from the store at this point, because his toxic behavior is absolutely unacceptable. If the coworker didn't swear at this guy in the first place, a fight would not have broken out. I know when you're in retail, you probably want to say that to people all day, but it's just not worth it. So in my opinion, I don't blame you for avoiding Kevin. This guy is absolutely weird, he's gonna be toxic, and it's just not worth having your night ruined. And it's not your department. You are not to blame for this situation. So in my opinion, I wouldn't be so hard on yourself. I honestly don't think anybody could have predicted that Kevin would be this violent. So I honestly don't think you are to blame in the slightest. But what do you think? Leave a comment down below. If you were in this situation, what would you have done? We would love to hear what you have to say. My boyfriend's extended family is incredibly toxic towards me, and I desperately do not want to visit them while on Christmas based on previous past experience, and I don't know what to do. So my boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years. We didn't spend our first Christmas together, as we were a very new couple. We did spend last Christmas together, and it was the worst Christmas I've ever had in quite a long time, and I genuinely don't want to experience that again. For some context, my boyfriend and I grew up in very different homes. I grew up poor, and my family is very fractured. I don't even remember the last Christmas we were all together. Maybe it was about a decade ago. My parents adopted my brother's children 5 years back. They still aren't well off, so any Christmas gifts are for the kids. And I'm fine with that. I don't need any gifts. My father's health has been failing, so I just cherish the time I have with the family I still have. In complete contrast, my boyfriend grew up in a rich family, college paid for and trust fund rich. They all have good relationships and spend every holiday as one big happy family, with not a single person missing. And every holiday season, they are showered with gifts and lavish parties by his grandparents. Last year, I was wheelchair bound due to an accident, so I kind of went with my boyfriend to what he did since we lived together and I couldn't really drive. We received formal invites to several Christmas parties his family held. My name was on them, so I thought I'd be welcome with open arms. I did get the chance to stop by my parents' house and drop gifts off. It was the best part of my entire Christmas, just spending those couple hours with them. We ended up spending the night Christmas Eve at his parents'. The married couples got the bedrooms, and since we weren't married, we got separate air mattresses and separate living rooms, which is not fun with my busted up legs. But I understood because we aren't married. Eventually, his mother made a comment that really stung as we all got ready for bed. She said, "I'm so happy all my boys and their wives are here. No offense to you." She said that looking directly at me, and it did not sit well with me at all. The next day, we went to his grandparents' house, and I was in awe seeing so many family members, and they all seemed so happy and getting along. My boyfriend had assured me when we got the invite, his parents would make me feel welcome. I've met them many times, so I thought it wouldn't be too bad. They started opening presents in the basement living room. I couldn't get to it because of my wheelchair. I don't expect 20 or so people to accommodate me though, so my boyfriend carried me downstairs. Grandma came out with a wagon full of gifts. I was sat with my boyfriend and his brothers and their wives. Grandma hands all of the wives 5 to 6 gifts. She looks me dead in the eye and said, "Sorry, only wives get presents. Maybe next year if you two are married, you might get something." Which was really nasty because all the wives had been with their husbands as long as my boyfriend boyfriend had been with me. It wasn't about the presents. It was her saying that to my face after inviting me into her home, after I gave up my family time to be there. It felt like a slap in the face. I had to hold back my tears, watching all the wives open lavish gifts of designer bags, jewelry, blankets, things I'd never even dreamed of receiving. It stung so deep. My only solace was knowing that my boyfriend and I were going to be going home soon, and we would have our own little Christmas exchange, one gift to each other. I had pre-made a lasagna to bake, and we had a movie picked out. I just wanted to leave and do that so badly. So I told my boyfriend I wanted to leave and do our own Christmas. He started helping me up the stairs, and his family started begging him to stay. He told me that he would call me an Uber, and we could open our gifts tomorrow. We got upstairs, and the moment it was just the two of us, I broke down sobbing. I told him to please just come with me, and it was the only thing I was looking forward to. Of course, right as I'm sobbing my eyes out, begging my boyfriend to come home, his dad comes upstairs. I felt pathetic, sobbing in front of him and his dad. My boyfriend felt awful and apologized profusely. He said he would come back home with me. We went home and exchanged our gifts, and ended up both falling asleep from holiday exhaustion. Which brings me to this holiday season. I'm absolutely dreading it. We've already received an invite to the first Christmas gathering of the season. I'm willing to go to his family parties that they throw, but I just cannot find it in me to go to his family's actual Christmas Day gathering. We still aren't married, so I know I'm going to be treated that way again, and I just can't handle it. Family is extremely important to my boyfriend, and I know he is already expecting me to come through based on some of the comments that he has made. How do I tell him without bashing on his family that I would prefer not to go? I want to spend Christmas Eve with my family, and frankly, I'd rather spend Christmas Day alone. I just know that he won't take it well. I've avoided so many family gatherings this year because I just can't even look at his grandma. She's made it very clear that she doesn't like me, even telling my boyfriend to make sure that he doesn't get me pregnant, or else he is going to be stuck making child support payments, treating me as if I'm only after his money. I didn't even know how rich his family was until 6 months ago after we started dating. I love my boyfriend's dad and some of his brothers, as well as their wives. I don't want him thinking I hate his entire family, but I also don't want to come off as if I'm bashing the rest of his family either. They are kind enough to invite me to their parties, so I don't want to seem ingrateful, but I honestly just can't handle it, and I don't know what to do. Wow, this story actually made me angry. The way these people were treating this lady is absolutely disgusting. There's literally no excuse for acting this way. They not only ostracized her, but they made it a point to make her feel unwelcome. Like, it's just absolutely disgusting. And that comment made by the grandma saying, "Oh, don't get her pregnant, you'll be stuck with child support payments." How vile and vindictive and gross can you possibly get? I don't blame this original poster in the slightest. I would not want to show up to this family stuff ever again either. You can't treat people like that and then expect them to want to show up when it counts. So in my opinion, if I were in your shoes, I would not go to this. There is no way in the world I would ever put myself through that kind of situation ever again. That's just not gonna happen. So I think you need to take the time and talk to your boyfriend honestly and openly. You need to explain exactly where you're coming from and why you don't feel comfortable around his family, especially around Christmas. I would much rather take a home that is poor and doesn't have everything together, but is at least decent to me and treats me like family, as opposed to having a family that's rich and incredibly hateful. It is not worth your time deciding to step away from these people, and if your boyfriend really cares about you, he will take the time to do what you need to do. You can even approach this by saying, "Hey, last year we went to your family's house. This year, let's go to my parents' house. Spend time with your family. Maybe this will be a nice contrast, and you can start a pattern of going back and forth. If anything, that can at least be a short-term solution." And that's not even necessarily a lie. Maybe in another year, his family might warm up to you a little bit more and treat you decently. But as of right now, based on what you have already gone through, I don't blame you in the slightest for not wanting to go, because these people are absolutely toxic, and you should not have to deal with that. My crazy entitled aunt drives 500 miles in the middle of the night, demanding that I let her sleep in my house. But when I tell her to leave, she calls the cops and tries to claim that she owns my house and that they should kick me out. And I honestly could not be more stunned by someone else's stupidity. Here's what happened. So without getting too political, we recently had an election in the USA. My aunt supported one side, while her husband and her adult offspring supported the other side. And as you could probably guess, the election did not go the way my aunt wanted it to. My aunt proceeded to flip out completely. She was breaking things, yelling, and even went as far as setting her daughter's I Vote voted sticker on fire. Her husband called the cops, and the cops declined to arrest her for anything, but suggested that she find a different place to stay for the night. This happened yesterday in New Jersey. Fast forward to 2 a.m. today, and here I am sleeping peacefully in my home with my family, over 500 miles away from all of that drama. My fence alarm goes off, waking me up. I don't know if it's a bear or a trespasser, so I get my pants on, and I grab a tool used for my safety, if you know what I mean, just to be safe. It turns out my aunt had cut the lock of my front gate because she couldn't get in, and I wasn't answering my phone, even though it was 2 in the morning. I mean, why did she have bolt cutters in her car in the first place? So I put my tools away and I ask her what on earth is going on. And at this point, she starts freaking out and crying and screaming. Mind you, this is at 2 in the morning in a very private, quiet community. She talks about how the devil took her family and they just threw her out. And she says that since she has nowhere else to go, I apparently need to let her in so that she can stay in my guest room for a while. So honestly, who knows how long that will be. I told her that a friend of mine was using that room right now, so it was completely occupied. This person came from Texas all the way to West Virginia just to hang out with me, and I'm not going to toss them out with 30 seconds of notice, all because my crazy aunt decided to show up at 2 in the morning. So at this point, after I said this, she decides to call the police and tell them that I'm keeping her from entering her home. When it comes to my house, we're in the woods, so the cops don't come here very quickly. So after 2 hours of waiting, at 4:41 in the morning, the cops show up at my house. I see them talking to her in my driveway, and she shows them the bolt cutters and the ruined lock. A few minutes later, the officer knocks on my door. They look at me and try to claim that this is actually my tenant, but I had to cut them off immediately, and I tell them that I do not have a tenant at this house. I say I own and occupy this structure, and I offered to show him the deed, but he still would not listen, as he tried to parrot all the claims that my aunt was making about her living here. So I cut him off again, and I say, what's the address on her ID? What does it say? Tell me. And at this point, the cop is getting upset with me, and I can tell. So I try to de-escalate the situation. I say, look man, she doesn't live here. She has never lived here. That is my aunt. She lives in New Jersey. Please, just check her ID card. Eventually, the cop calms down and lets me know that he will talk to her and then come back. 10 minutes later, the cop comes back to the door. This time, there's 3 of them in total, not just the one from earlier. One of them had stripes and a rocker on his arm, so I could tell he was important. He asked me if there's any way my aunt can stay here for the night, because apparently she's way too under the influence to drive right now, so he can't let her back on the road, which absolutely baffles me. This woman drove from New Jersey to West Virginia, all while she was under the influence. I told them again that she cannot stay here, but that I'm sure there's room in the local jail. The cop then asked me if she can just sleep in her car in my driveway and leave in the morning when she wakes up. And I was so appalled. I told them absolutely not. I explained that when she wakes up in the morning, I would just have to call them to get her off of my property. So that would solve nothing. So I then asked them formally, remove her from my property. As a long story short, her car got towed, and she is in the drunk tank with no charges pending for the night. So I pretty much kiss my sleep goodbye, and hopefully she never comes back. What an absolute nut job. Talk about overreacting from an election. I mean, it's one thing to be very loyal to whatever party this lady subscribes to, but it's another thing to start lighting things on fire and demanding entrance into somebody else's home. These cops also kind of sucked. The fact that she wasn't arrested not only for breaking into someone else's property, but also literally for lying to the police is beyond me. But at least this lady got off this guy's property, and hopefully she never comes back ever again. My boyfriend doesn't want me working out at the gym with him, and I honestly don't know what to do. Usually, I hear stories of boyfriends wanting their girlfriends to work out at the gym with them, but my boyfriend is the complete opposite. At first, I thought maybe there's something or someone that he's hiding at the gym that he just might not want me to see, but he's brought me to the gym twice, and he had to show me how to properly do my workout formations and teach me my workouts. It was during his routine though, so it did slow him down on his own workout. He wants me to work out in general because he believes everyone should be healthy. It has nothing to do with my weight. I'm 5 foot tall and I mainly store my fat in my thighs and my butt. So I have curves, but I'm still very skinny. Whenever I have my days where I feel fat, he tells me that I'm not. So he doesn't want me to work out to change my weight, and he doesn't actively tell me to work out, just whenever I bring it up, that I may want him to motivate motivate me to say that I should, and that I could only do like a 3-day workout routine. We agreed that my first week, he would show me each day's the routines and formations for the workout. Then he said I can go alone and record myself to show him later. I thought he mainly didn't want to work out at the same time with me because so far it's been slowing him down because I don't know what I'm doing with the machines and the weights and whatnot. So when I'm there, we are typically in the gym a lot longer. But today he said something that really was troubling to me. He said, even if you know your stuff, I still don't want to be talking to you during my workout or having to worry about your machine or your time just so we can leave together. I'm fine if we're there at the same time. I just don't want to work out together, especially since we're doing drastically different routines. We can talk more about it in person. I can take you anytime you want though, so just let me know and we can start. He usually listens to music at the gym and did tell me that he didn't like sharing the earbud with me or having to stop the music to explain something to me because it stops his workout flow. But my issue is being a girl in the gym already makes me feel uncomfortable, especially if I'm going to be working out all by myself with a bunch of gym bros. I always feel like people would be staring at me, especially when at first I will have barely any weights on and I'm not going to be great with my formations. I like going with my boyfriend and having someone with me when I'm at the gym, at least right now. It takes me a while to get used to things, but once I have a hold on them, I'm pretty independent and I won't need much help at all. I don't really know what to do from here because I feel like I won't be able to get myself to go without him starting out, but I also don't want to impede on his exercise, especially since he's already in the gym for 2 hours. It also seems like a waste having us both drive there when we could go in the same car and I'd probably be the one waiting for him most of the time once I get my routine down. What should I do? I have to be honest, I really do see where your boyfriend is coming from. He has set up a very clear boundary that, hey, this is my hobby and my practice, and I want to just be able to do my thing without being bothered. And I really don't think he's being rude when he says that. I think he's just saying how he feels. And it seems like you want to change that just so you can be more convenienced, instead of just respecting his boundaries. For him, working out is not couples time. It's not a couples activity. It's clear that he wants to work out without any kind of distraction, and he doesn't want to be held accountable for you or anybody else, especially with how you're coming and going to the gym. Like honestly, that does need to come from you. So it's perfectly normal and healthy for him to say, no, let's do this separately. And I don't think that means he doesn't love you either. So if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be respecting this guy's boundaries. He knows what he wants, and unfortunately, it's just not what you want. And I think for the sake of his own happiness at the gym, as well as your own development of being independent at the gym, in my opinion, it would be best to leave him alone and let him do his own thing. But what do you think? What would you do if you were in this situation? Do you think the girlfriend's right in this one, where you want to try and do this as a couple? Or do you side with a boyfriend, where you want the workouts to be separate? Leave a comment down below. My boyfriend lied to me for 3 years about a girl he met on Discord, and he just confessed to me that they did have a thing together, and I honestly don't know what to do. My boyfriend had a friend from a different country. They met while gaming and had a little friend group on Discord. Well, I always got a weird vibe from her. He always reassured me that there was never anything between them and that she's just a friend, even when I found out that her Discord name on her server was Daddy, and that she sometimes called him that, even when I wanted to look up something on his phone and saw that her chat was muted, and he said he wanted to hide it from me because I didn't like her. He always reassured me that she was just a friend. Well, a few days ago, we talked about her, and I got that weird feeling in the pit of my stomach again. So I asked him if he ever had a thing with her, and when I said that, he didn't answer. And then like 4 hours later, after a huge talk, he finally confessed. Yes, they had a thing together. They would send each other very suggestive images, and this was over the course of a few months. It happened before we were together, but ever since we got together, I asked him the same question, and he always said that no, we never had a thing, she is just a friend. And I feel so unbelievably insecure about this, because she looks like all the girls that he would like, and he lied to me for 3 years, which stretches out the entirety of our relationship. And he used to be good friends with her. They were texting all the time and talking on the phone as well. How should I believe him when he says to me that nothing ever happened while we were together? I'm honestly devastated. I feel like our whole relationship was a lie. I genuinely don't know why he didn't just tell me. If he had just been honest, this would have never been an issue. I really need some advice on how to move forward now, because I'm honestly not sure what to do. This is a really sketchy situation, because you said it best. This definitely changes things. And it's so hurtful. For 3 years, he lied about this girl, stating, oh no, there was never a thing together. But in fact, they were sending pictures to each other, and not normal pictures, if you know what I mean. That's really really terrible. And I think you have it right, and I feel the same way. If they had just said something in the beginning of the relationship, you could probably say, okay, well, let's just not talk to this girl. But the fact that he hid it from you, and the fact that they might still be talking in some way, is what would really set me off, to be completely honest. Lying is honestly enough for me to say this is not a good relationship, and he lied for 3 years. That covers literally every anniversary, every Valentine's Day, every birthday that you guys have had and celebrated together. He has lied about this girl that he's had definitely some kind of relationship with, and that's really not okay. So I think you really need to take a good hard look at this relationship, because based on what your boyfriend did, I just don't see this as a healthy one, and it honestly might be time to reevaluate some things. My boyfriend is always constantly gaming, and it's honestly starting to become way too much for me, and I don't know what to do. I met my boyfriend by the name of John a couple of years ago, and told him soon into dating that one of my deal breakers is excessive gaming. My previous boyfriend had a gaming addiction, and I found out through that experience that I'm just not compatible with men who are into competitive gaming. A video game here and there I don't mind, but a daily hobby that takes priority over basic things like cooking, cleaning, stuff like that, I'm honestly not a fan of. And he agreed and claimed that he's not that big of a gamer. Fast forward 2 years and things were fantastic. He's always attentive and we enjoyed the same things. He would come over to my apartment and I would go over to his once or twice a week, and we would have dinner and watch our shows and just hang out. Then on weekends we would go out and do some things outdoors or even do some traveling. We moved in together last month and suddenly he's turned into a gamer. Like I mentioned, I don't mind gaming. It's excessive gaming though that I really do mind. It doesn't matter to me how he utilizes his time after work to decompress, but I started to notice patterns that I wasn't crazy about. And he says that he has been picking up gaming more and more recently and he really enjoys it. Since we moved in, he will start work at 9 in the morning, we both work from home, and he will work with some gaming sprinkled in between. He won't eat anything until about 3 p.m. and once he finishes work by 6, he goes on to the game non-stop until 9 or 10, at which point he'll realize he hasn't eaten dinner and he ends up ordering Uber Eats. That's if I don't order or make something for the both of us by like 7 o'clock, in which case he'll just eat that, which will be later at about 10 o'clock. So I've just been taking care of dinner by myself for the both of us since we've moved in, and the only times we've eaten dinner together is when I've pulled him away from the TV screen to do so. This has resulted in a lot of arguments because I feel like he's bordering on addiction. I've also done all the cleaning since we've moved in. I've done our laundry, and I've had to rally us both together just to take the trash out or to go grocery shopping, because if I don't do it, then no one will. And I want to preface this that I'm not a neat freak by any means. I just do things when it's time to do them, and I honestly don't want to wait any longer. He claims that he will do whatever chore I ask of him, and that we just don't have the same routine, but I feel like giving him instructions is a job in and of itself. Like, we both live here. It's not my job to keep an eye out for things that need to be done. Syncing up on one routine is one thing, but if the trash is overflowing, or if there are no dishes left, or any groceries in the fridge, and you're sitting there just playing video games, it doesn't really feel like it's about a routine. It feels like you're just becoming addicted to a video game, and you're neglecting common household duties, and you're waiting for the other person you live with to get fed up and do it themselves, which is what I have been doing every week since moving in. He claims he is not addicted, and that he's just gaming casually, and that I'm expecting him to do things that he's not aware need doing. So he will say stuff like, "How am I supposed to know that there's no dishes left if I didn't even walk into the kitchen today?" I've told one of my friends all about this, and they say I have not properly communicated my expectations to him, and that I would be getting ahead of myself to break up with him without properly communicating how I feel. I have told him many times over the past month how his excessive gaming is the deal breaker. I talked to him about it at the start of our relationship, but my friend said I need to express my expectations with concrete actions, such as letting him know, for example, that I would like us to have dinner at 6 o'clock p.m. every day together, and that he can cook Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I can take the other days. But to me, this seems futile, and my previous experience tells me nothing will come of it. My friend even suggested that we assign each other chores, but that just makes me feel like his mother, and that is honestly not me. So I'm kind of at a loss, and I honestly don't know what to do. I think you're right in a lot of ways. I think you absolutely should not have to instruct your boyfriend on how and what to do with the house. He is clearly not doing what he needs to do, and he is neglecting household responsibilities just to play his video games. And he's neglecting you. I don't think it's unreasonable for him to stop playing the video game and have dinner together, or even to be more attentive to the house. I mean, you do both live there after all. But I don't think you should let your previous experience with your ex dictate how this could could go. I think that's just an unhealthy way of looking at things, and I think you really should try those examples that your friend gave you of trying to bring your boyfriend back to being your boyfriend. Assigning chores as well as assigning when he needs to cook could be a really good way of putting him back on course and avoiding this deal breaker in your lives. Because it sounds like you really do love your boyfriend, and you've obviously spent a lot of years together, and it really would be a shame for this to cause some kind of rift or for you two to break up all over him playing video games. My girlfriend keeps fighting with me every time I try to explain anything about how I feel, and it's really starting to wear me down, and I honestly don't know what to do. I'm a 24-year-old male, and I've been dating my girlfriend who's 20 for about 4 months. She is my first ever girlfriend, and I've had no previous experience on what it's like to be in a relationship before. Before I start, I want to give some background. I have a tendency to overthink and overreact to stuff. She has had bad experiences with exes before, which have left her completely traumatized. I have also accused her of stuff before, but I have admitted it and I have apologized for it, and I'm working on not doing that anymore. However, by accusing her before, it has left her more sensitive now when it comes to arguments. My current problem is this. We've been fighting very often recently. Like every week there's a fight that happens, and it's getting exhausting for the both of us. For my part, it's also getting exhausting because whenever I talk or express my opinion, I always get called out, and I'm told I'm accusing her and that I'm manipulating her, or that I'm just attacking her or being selfish and not taking her feelings into consideration. The thing is, I'm not trying to do that. I know before I have accused her of stuff because I overreacted, and I do recognize those times when it did happen. I also apologize when it went down, but in these cases, I'm just expressing how I feel about something, and I keep getting accused of attacking or manipulating. For the record, I never manipulated her. There have been times where I'm being called selfish without even saying anything. An example of this is when I would stay till late at night at her house, and when I told her that I'm gonna go because I have work early in the morning, she begs me to stay with her until she falls asleep. When I tell her that I can't do that, I get called selfish and an argument erupts. This happens quite frequently. Another example is when she needs me to come over because she is dealing with something, and I tell her that I can't because I'm really busy with something. I will again get called selfish and a fight will happen. A final example is when she says she wants to discuss a problem, and I tell her that I don't feel comfortable talking about it. She will then get upset and tells me that I'm not taking her feelings into consideration. It has gotten to the point where I don't feel comfortable expressing how I feel to her because I feel like it's going to turn into an argument, and I'm just going to get called out for it again. I understand that I have accused her before, and she is defensive about it, and I have been trying hard not to do that again, especially by trying to think logically if overthinking does pop up in my head, as well as just trying to be as calm as possible and as gentle as possible. And I do this on purpose when I'm explaining how I feel, but I still get accused of this stuff. I do love her a lot, and I want to fix these problems, but I'm getting frustrated with the fact that this keeps repeating, and I honestly don't know what to do. Sounds like your girlfriend is projecting her problems onto you. If anything, she's being incredibly selfish. And to top it all off, it sounds like she's holding a grudge against you for some kind of mistake or argument that happened in the past, which is really toxic in my opinion. And that's not fair for you at all. You apologize, you've tried to make things right, but she's still holding it over your head. And that's not okay. It would be different if this happened all the time, and you've constantly blamed her for stuff or something along those lines. But it sounds like this was a one and done situation, but she simply can't seem to let it go. And the examples that you've given, I honestly don't see how you're being selfish. It seems like you're just giving very basic boundaries, and you're trying to express how you feel. So based on what you've described, in my opinion, the problem really is with her. She's being irrational, and she is the one being selfish, not you. So hopefully you can find some kind of solution to this. Maybe couples counseling or something like that. Some kind of mediator to help you feel like you're both being heard. Because the way she's acting is completely unfair to you, and you really should be treated so much better than that in this relationship. An entitled Karen and her friend are slowly turning the entire hotel that I work for against me in a serious way. And no matter how hard I try, they always victimize themselves and turn all of their problems against me. And I'm honestly at a loss, and I don't know what to do. Okay, so let's backtrack a little bit and go back all the way to March. We hired a new breakfast attendant by the name of Tina. That's not her real name. Tina was the type who acted nice, but used her anxiety as a crutch for literally everything. She always looked like she was crying. She would come into the office every morning complaining about coworkers, as well as her job in general. Mind you, I'm a night auditor, so I had to deal with her every single morning, and I got burnt out from her complaining very quickly. I did my job the way I needed to. I would get the food started in the oven, get the oatmeal started and make sure all the coffee was out. Tina would then say things to my manager, such as, "The night auditor was so mean to me this morning, and she's not doing her job." And because Tina is like 45 years old and I'm only 30, my manager sided with Tina and labeled me as toxic. She'd say stuff like, "I hate when people don't like me. It makes me really stressed." And she said all of this to my boss. So I just kept to myself, and I barely even said as much as hi to her because she honestly made me so uncomfortable with all the lies. I was just trying to do my job after all. Tina would later go down to 1 day a week, and we hired a new attendant. We will call this new attendant Karen, also not her real name. Karen seemed so nice at first, and I went above and beyond for her. It wasn't until 2 weeks ago when Karen started coming in every morning, reprimanding me for not doing my job, as well as victimizing herself to me for attention. Karen and Tina got very close. They pretty much became best friends. Karen started asking me things like, "Why can't you do your job right? Why do I always have to help you?" I was blown away by this because I thought I did more than I was supposed to for her. I went to my manager about this altercation, and they asked me why I have a problem with every breakfast person. Later that day, I told them in a group message that I wasn't coming in today due to a lack of support from management in this situation. I have never done something like this before, and I'm honestly just fed up. My general manager calls me, asking what's going on, so I explained that my manager is not listening. I then ask if we can have a breakfast checklist, because I'm doing everything right, but Karen doesn't seem to understand her job duties. Again, I worked breakfast before I was an adult, so I know exactly what breakfast entitles for all the attendants. Everything seemed like it went well, but I come in the next morning to a checklist where I actually have more breakfast duties than Karen. Now I do have to set out the food. I was upset because they're clearly siding with Karen, but I didn't say a word and started doing exactly what was on my list. And this happened a week ago. It's now 1 week later, and I'm in the kitchen setting out food and bringing the last dispenser of coffee out to the bar. It is 5:30 in the morning on the dot. Apparently, Karen was calling from the vestibule, but I didn't hear the phone when I was in the kitchen. It was a total accident. I then see Karen at the door, and I just let her in. She maybe stood out there for 3 minutes max. She is always 5 to 10 minutes late, by the way, so I never know when she's coming in. Karen comes up to me fake crying, saying in a whiny voice, "Why wouldn't you let me in? Why don't you like me?" I look at Karen and I say, "I'm sorry, I was setting out breakfast. I didn't hear the phone." Then Karen said, "But you know what time I get here. Why didn't you do your job earlier?" Then I catch her out on her laptop in the lobby in front of all the guests, and when my relief came in, she hurried and put it away. I feel like this is a mean girl situation because Tina and Karen are close. Tina made Karen think that I'm this mean, toxic person to her, so Karen is now trying to get me to quit. The big problem here is that I've never done anything to be mean. I just keep to myself, and I wasn't interested in conversations with her because she's always complaining about everyone else or just victimizing herself. What can I do in this situation? This is so childish, and it's stressful, and no matter what I do, I am backed into a corner. I've been looking for other jobs to have some kind of plan, but I like my job and I just want peace. Having a conversation with her is useless no matter how I approach her. Is this a lost cause? What should I do? What an awful situation to be stuck in, and honestly, I really feel bad for the original poster right here because this is just not fair. I am honestly surprised you still want to work there. I get that you love your job, but not only is management ignoring your complaints, but your other coworkers are ganging up against you. That is clearly just a toxic work environment. Literally nobody is on your side, and I know exactly what that feels like. And in my opinion, you will find another job that you love that does not include these types of toxic people. When it comes to the temporary solution, if you do decide to stick around, of dealing with Karen as well as Tina and all these managers that suck, in my opinion, it's time to document everything. You need to write down everything they say, what they did, all of the contradictions, and why you feel it's not correct. Keep it all in a secure notebook, and then present it to management after like a week or a month, or whenever the evidence is enough for you to prove your case. Because if these people won't believe you, then it's time to make them believe you. And it's not fair for you to be stuck in this kind of situation. So hopefully this can all work out, because it sounds like literally everybody's against you, and you do not deserve to get treated like that at work. My boyfriend broke up with me 2 months ago, and I'm so confused by his back and forth behavior that I honestly don't know what to do. I'm a 24-year-old female, and I got broken up with by my now ex-boyfriend after dating for 7 months. We were really good friends for all of 2021, most of which was very platonic, and we had the same mutual friends. Towards the end of the year, we showed more interest in each other, and we eventually got together in January of this year. We were perfect in the beginning, but eventually he was pushing for me to move in with him after only dating for 3 months. And you know what? Crazily enough, I did. After what barely seemed like a month of living together, he started growing distant. At the beginning, he used to love to cuddle and sit next to each other and would compliment me all the time. We would talk about our future all the time together, and he would say how much he couldn't wait to marry me, as well as have kids and build a beautiful life together. But then, after living together, he wouldn't want me to sit close to him or touch him. He no longer complimented me either. Things continued like this until June, when there was a family passing. I supported him and his family any way that I could, and I knew this would affect him, so I gave him some space to heal. Around this time, he told me how he didn't want kids anymore, that he liked our life the way it was, and that he enjoyed the freedom that we had. This was not a deal breaker for me, so I agreed. About a month later, he changed his mind and told me that he did want kids now, and that it was a deal breaker for me if I didn't want kids. I was so confused. All I said was that I do want kids in the future, just not right now. I think we're still so young, and there's so much I want to do before having kids. He said he also didn't want kids right now either, maybe 3 to 5 years from now. And that is when he said something that absolutely stunned me. He said he didn't want me on any kind of birth control until then. Well, the beginning of August, he found out that I ended up getting on birth control, and he was super upset about it. The next day, he asked to take a break from our relationship, and I actually ended up moving out that same day. He contacted me the whole week after I moved out, saying how much he missed me. I ended up seeing him a week later to talk things over, and it got us nowhere. He ended up breaking up with me a week later because he claims that we're just not on the same page, and that I'm making his life a roller coaster. He's kept in contact with me ever since then, and we've gone out for drinks a few times. I know I'm prolonging my suffering by still being in contact. I've tried going about a month of no contact, and he ended up reaching out again, saying he's always the one to reach out first. I am so lost and confused about his back and forth. My friends and family keep telling me to just move on, but I'm struggling to do that. I love him so much. He was my best friend, and I don't know what he wants from me. What should I do? It sounds like you dated a crazy person, and you honestly should feel lucky that he cut things loose. He does not sound stable in the slightest. Not to mention the fact that there are so many red flags that have just cropped up in this description alone that I think would be very irresponsible if you didn't consider very seriously. This guy didn't want you on birth control until you guys got married and had kids 5 years from now. Like, that's just weird. Like, why would your boyfriend make that kind of a demanding decision about your body? That's inappropriate in my opinion. And this back and forth behavior is just really weird. Like, if anything, I think you were able to finally see his true colors once you moved in with him and started to see exactly how he really is. So honestly, I just would really try and find a different relationship to pursue, because the way this guy is acting is not normal, and it really seems like he's just gonna try and string you along, and that's not fair for you in the slightest. My boyfriend is being very controlling about my time, and he is being very resistant to any type of change in our relationship, considering that we're gonna be moving in together in March, and I honestly don't know what to do. My boyfriend and I are getting very serious, and I do truly love him. We have plans for me to move into his apartment when my lease ends, and then 6 months later, when his ends, we will move back to my city in a new apartment. He lives 2 hours away, and he is planning on finding a new job in my city around August when his lease ends. The thing is, I love hanging out with him. I spent 90% of last month in his city, maybe going home like 3 or 4 days total to go into my office and get some more clothes. The problem is, he never comes here, only on the weekends, mostly because his job isn't remote. In contrast, my job is about 90% remote, and I can work pretty much wherever I want. The problem is, I have a gym here, and my things are also here. I bring like a suitcase and 2 small bags of my personal items whenever I visit him. I have not been to the gym in months, and he doesn't make food at his place. We always eat out. I've asked many times if we could just go to the grocery store, but he always puts it off. I just don't think changing my lifestyle is fair to me, just because we have to wait till March to live together. I know these things will get better when I move in. I'll transfer my gym membership to the gym there, and I will make sure we start cooking, and I will have my self-care stuff at his house. We have a trip this weekend, and I asked him if we could just meet up the day of the trip instead of the day before. I am feeling kind of depressed and unhappy right now, and I just want a day to myself to regroup. He thinks that this is a terrible idea because he thinks I'm having doubts about living together and that having a day to myself won't be possible if we live in the same apartment. I just need a day to clean my own apartment. I'm never here, and to be honest, it's gotten trashed since I literally don't live here anymore. What can I do? I love him so much, and I do truly want to live together in March and have a new place in my city in August. What should I do? This really does sound like a really tricky situation for the original poster to be stuck in. It sounds like to an extent you're letting him dictate the boundaries of your relationship. In my opinion, if you want to go grocery shopping or cook, you should just do it. If you want to stay at home and take care of your place, do that as well. You really should have control over your free time, and I don't think it's fair for him to say what you can and can't do in that way. And I completely agree with the original poster in this regard. I don't think you should have to wait to put your life on hold up until March when you move in together, just to make some kind of lifestyle changes that you really do want to make. And I completely understand where you're coming from as well. Eating takeout and fast food all the time is going to be absolutely exhausting, and it's going to make you feel gross. I know it does for me at least. So wanting to have something a little bit healthier in your diet is not at all unreasonable. So I say just go ahead and do it. Start making those plans now and start getting food for yourself, as well as do all the other things that you want to do with your free time. And if he complains saying, oh, you just don't want to move in with me, just know that that's a weird excuse, and he seriously just needs to respect your boundaries. Because for him to guilt trip you for wanting any kind of alone time is really controlling, and you really do not deserve that type of treatment in your life. My girlfriend is kicking me out of my own apartment that I signed a lease on, and I honestly don't know what to do. A month ago, my girlfriend broke up with me because she felt that I hadn't been romantic enough throughout the relationship, and that she felt I hadn't been pulling my weight. As a result of that, she told me to put in my 2 weeks for a job I had just started working in, and to pack my things and leave. For some context, we, alongside our friends who are another couple, moved into this apartment because on-campus housing was both too expensive and would probably not be available to us since we're upperclassmen. All four of us signed the lease. I, however, am taking a gap year and have been spending my time mostly just working so I can pay for rent and save some money for special occasions as well as groceries. I hadn't put in my 2 weeks on the day because I assumed that if I truly bettered myself as a person by both just seeking help for myself as well as trying to pull my weight, that I would be given a chance to stay, especially since I signed the lease. 2 weeks ago, my girlfriend's family was coming over, so I booked a hotel for the weekend to not cause any problems for them. Upon my return, I was met with anger that I hadn't left the apartment yet, nor had I turned in my 2 weeks notice. But since I had paid rent, she would give me until the end of the month before she would throw all my things out because me staying is creating a toxic situation. Since then, I went to see a therapist and learned that I had a long-standing depression and that a lot of my problems in the relationship were a result of my deteriorating mental and emotional state. I've then made it a vow to myself to not let it destroy my life any longer and take steps to becoming the person I was before I got depressed, or just being a better person in general. I would say I'm doing much better since that therapy session, but there is still this looming situation in which I have to get kicked out of the apartment and I have nowhere else to go. I voiced my desire to stay to my other roommates and that I'd do anything to make that possible, but I was told that I would not be given that opportunity. I also really wished I could patch up the relationship because I truly feel that I am and can continue to be a better person, and I really want to make it work, but I haven't been met with much acceptance. Things are honestly falling apart and I really don't know what to do. What a terrible situation to be stuck in. The people that this original poster live with absolutely suck. But on that note, this has me really confused because I'm pretty sure if you signed a lease, you don't have to leave. It may be uncomfortable, but she can't kick you out like that. And why on earth would she make you quit your job? Like, what on earth is she thinking? That just doesn't make any sense to me. And honestly, if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would quit my job. Because if you do, you're not going to have any money and you're not going to have any place to live in a second if you move out. Which, by the way, you might need to lawyer up. Because if she seriously wants to try and destroy your property, then she's going to have bigger problems on her hands. So if I was in your shoes, I would not only find a lawyer to try and help me out with this situation and seek out proper legal advice, but I would put a lock on my door so so that my roommates can't go in there and vandalize and throw my stuff out on the lawn. That's incredibly inappropriate. And in that meantime, I would look for another place to live. You signed a lease, you put your name on the dotted line, and if they do decide to take that step and destroy your property, then you can report them to the police and explain the situation. So hopefully this can work out for you, because your girlfriend is being an absolute bully, and I really hope you come to your senses and make her your ex-girlfriend, because you do not deserve this kind of treatment in your life. My partner constantly badgers me about the dumbest things in arguments, and when I try to set boundaries and tell him to stop, he claims then that I'm just trying to censor him by trying to stop the argument, and I'm honestly exhausted and I don't know what to do. My husband has been on a judgment kick lately, where he thinks I don't thank fast food workers enough. I say thank you at routine points in the transaction, most often when they hand me my order, and I say thank you in return like a normal person, but he thinks I should be interjecting thank yous at other points, where I just don't think it's very natural or necessary. And it weirds me out, honestly, that he's being like this. Like he thinks they're peons who need extra thanks bestowed upon them. Frankly, I'd find it very patronizing and very weird if a person was doing that to me. I have told him this numerous times, that I don't agree, or I'm just not comfortable doing it the times that he's been talking about. And when that doesn't work, I frankly say that I don't care what he thinks. It's my interaction with the other person and mine alone. He doesn't have a great social sense for this kind of thing, and I wouldn't take advice from him anyhow, but he keeps nagging and mocking me about it. For example, on Sunday, we were at an order window, and I happened to say thank you at an earlier point, because with the specifics of the conversation, it made sense to do it right then and there. And that's when he high-fived me like he thought I was learning from all his nagging and getting better at saying thanks to people. But he had honestly nothing to do with it. It just made sense at that particular time. I didn't even know what he was high-fiving me for anyways. I thought it was because I got the order right. I had made a mistake trying to order the same thing the last time we were there. But sadly, it came out afterward that it was just him condescendingly mocking me about the issue again, unsolicited and out of nowhere. I don't know what to do about a stalemate like this. The other thing he traps me with is that if I ask him to stop, he feels censored, and he feels like he can't express himself freely, and that the subject is going to be off limits, and that he's going to feel lonely in the relationship because I can't be talked to. But I just want him to stop. I've heard him, I don't agree with him, and the way he acts to me is not the way I'm comfortable with being treated. But anytime I ask him for something similar, I end up being the bad guy because his feelings are hurt and he feels lonely in our relationship. He won't even acknowledge that the high-fiving was a rude mockery. In fact, I'll be in the wrong for finding that rude when he never intends to cause me pain. My desire to drop this issue means I can't be talked to, and he's going to isolate, retreat, and blame me for the distance that grows. At no point will my feelings actually ever even be addressed. Every time I try the pattern of discussion, it goes like this, and I honestly don't know what to do. Your significant other literally sounds exhausting, and this is honestly a really unfortunate circumstance to be stuck in because legitimately nobody deserves to be treated this way. I mean, not everything has to be a fight, and you're allowed to disagree with him without him having to throw some kind of fit. And I'm telling you right now, this is really abusive and controlling behavior. It's extremely petty, and it's just really bizarre. It's like he's picking these weird hills to stand on just to be a jerk and defend them no matter what. I mean, what kind of weird nitpicky person is going to actually complain about you not thanking fast food workers enough? That's just obnoxious behavior, and it's very rude in my opinion. And you know what? He doesn't feel like he's being censored. He's using that as an excuse to keep treating you this way. He's using that to try and shut down your rightful complaints just so he can justify being weird and overbearing, which is exactly what he's doing. That does not sound like a loving partner in my opinion. And honestly, it feels like this might be the tip of the iceberg. And it seems like he's trying to gaslight you. People in relationships should be able to talk to one another, and they should be able to make compromises when things are weird. And guess what? This situation is weird. You clearly are trying to set boundaries, and this guy's just trying to water down what you're saying. So in my opinion, he's a massive jerk. And I really don't blame you for being upset by this. I think anybody would. So hopefully this situation can get worked out, because living your life never being right and having a partner who's going to judge you on the dumbest things possible honestly sounds completely exhausting, and you do not deserve to get treated like that. An entitled, stupid security guard tries to blame me for shoplifting, all because I look like the person that he's looking for. But despite my explanations, he simply will not take no for an answer, and he refuses to let me leave the store. Here's what happened. I'll start by saying that I have a baby face and have always been mistaken for someone who's very young, even after graduating high school. I also have random people approach me asking if I remember them from such and such because I've always been mistaken for someone that they knew from somewhere else. It's really spooky. Also, during this incident that I'm about to describe, most people might say that this guy just made a mistake, but the way he spoke to me, even after I told him that he had made a mistake, he simply refused to believe me and even started making claims of theft when the actual shoplifter was also in the store actually taking things. Here's what happened. I had stopped at Walmart to buy myself a quick lunch for work. As a side note, I'm still wearing my teal-colored themed uniform shirt from my job that reads House Depot Cashier Appreciation Month. I'm also wearing black slacks and shoes, along with a purple cap that also has the same logo and store name written on it, while wearing my black one-shoulder work bag that I use to carry my work-related things. I had just paid for everything and was heading towards the exit when a security guard stops me and asks to check my things, which I let him do and even held out my receipt to prove that I had paid for everything. The security guard then jumps all over me and says, "Have you paid for everything?" And at this point, I'm still holding out my receipt and I say, yes, here it is right here. You can look over it all if you like. The security guard then says something absolutely baffling. He says, "And how do I know it's not fake ones from another store?" So I responded by saying, "Because I just finished paying for it, and if you ask that cashier over there who literally just rang me up, she can tell you that I just paid for everything." And at this point, I got really weirded out by what he was asking. He then says, "I'm only asking because I've gotten reports that there have been a lot of theft around here lately, and the report matches your description." And after he said that, I was shocked. I said, "I've shopped here sometimes by myself, but most times I come here with my family, and I've never stolen anything from here, or from any store for that matter. Besides, today was the only time I had available to stop by and get my lunch." The security guard then had the audacity to claim that I was apparently in the store yesterday night, but I defended myself, and I said, "I wasn't here last night, I was at home all day." And that's when this security guard ups the ante and starts to act in such a way that absolutely blew my mind. He then says, "If you keep bad-mouthing me, I'll have you banned from this store. Now unload your bag and give back all the things you just took off the shelves right now." I explained to him that I'm telling the truth, and that if he wants to go through my bag and check everything, I'm not going to stop him. But again, I haven't stolen anything from the store. And as I was trying to explain that I had just gotten off of work, he interrupted me and said, "I've had enough of your garbage. I've been here all day, and I've seen you repeatedly come in and out of the store with your bag loaded with things that you didn't pay for. I'm calling the cops to have you arrested, and I'm getting management to have you banned permanently." And at this point, I didn't know what to do. I tried to reason with him, but he just straight up ignores me and radios over to management, as well as getting another security guard involved, just so they can detain me. Another security guard and the management finally make it over to us, and they ask what's happening. This stupid security guard says, "I've caught the shoplifter you told me about." And at this point, I chimed in again and I said, "I'm not shoplifting. I'm just buying lunch for work. I've got the receipt to prove it. I haven't stolen anything." The manager asks to see the receipt, and then the security guard actually claims that I'm using a fake receipt and refuses to believe that I wasn't lying, all while the second security guard was double checking and matching everything in my bag with the receipt. The manager finally looks up and says, "Everything in her bag matches up with the receipt. She's not lying or shoplifting. Please stop restricting her from leaving." But the security guard wasn't letting it go, because he said he could have sworn he saw me walking in and out of the store all day, even for the past few days. So I had to explain again. I already told you, the past few days I've either been at home or in college, and today was literally the only day I had available to go shopping just to get lunch. And I've clearly not been walking in and out if I'm still wearing my work uniform. The security guard then falls silent for a second, and then he said, "She's clearly lying now. She just said she was here all day, and now she's claiming she was at work." Thankfully, the second security guard had a set of brains on them, because they said, "No, that's what you said. She clearly said that she wasn't available to come here the past few days, up until right now." The manager then turns on this first security guard and says, "If you've seen who's shoplifting all day, why didn't you bother to stop them, or report them, or just decide to step in?" And just when this security guard was just about to say something, the manager stops him due to a call over the radio about needing security and management near the back of the store. The manager has this stupid security guard go with him just to see what the disturbance is, and the second security guard stays with me to hear my side of the story. After they walked away, I tell my side of the story, and as I finished, I get a text message from my dad asking why I'm not home yet, to which I speak to my dad, and he tells me he's coming to pick me up. After this, the first stupid security guard and and the manager are dragging a struggling, maybe high school age girl with a backpack full of electronics and more, dressed in loose clothes and tan pants with a pink cap, as well as a few cop cars pulling up behind us. They caught the girl who was actually shoplifting. After the manager and security guard finished speaking to the police and the girl was taken away, the other security guard, the one that actually has a brain, confirms my story, and the first stupid security guard tries to walk away as quickly as he could, but the manager stops him and demands that he apologizes to me right now, to which he did, and the manager told me I was allowed to leave and not be banned from the store. As I stepped outside of the store, my dad pulls up, and we eventually go home. A few days later, I was there shopping again with my parents, and the first security guard that was giving me so many problems was no longer there, and I'm honestly not surprised if he was fired, especially since he was making false claims, as well as threatening me for a crime that I didn't commit. I am amazed at how stupid that first security guard really is. Not only do they watch this one person try and steal all this stuff, but they then grab the wrong person and try and pin it all on them. I mean, how obnoxious can you get? Talk about being terrible at your job. So I'm really glad that this all worked out, because there's nothing worse than being accused of something criminal, especially when you had nothing to do with it. I don't feel like my needs are being met, and at this point I don't know what to do. So I've been dating my girlfriend for about 4 months, and we are currently 90 miles away. She travels to see me because she can work from home, and I don't get the time off to travel to see her. Things were good at the start, but as it got more serious, she started coming to visit for 2 weeks at a time. I felt I was losing myself, as I couldn't do the things that I enjoyed doing when she wasn't here, like spending time reading alone or seeing some friends. She says I can do these things, but I do feel guilty that she came all this way just to see me, so I try not to always do these things when she's here. We have had a lot of conversations already about our relationship, and she says that I keep pointing out the negatives about her, despite her doing positive things like cleaning the house and stuff like that. I do appreciate these things, and I have told her that a lot, but what gets me is that she works from home, so she's always going to be at home when I finish work. 9 out of 10 times, she's still in her pajamas. She won't plan things for dinner. She won't plan anything for us to do when I get finished with work. She doesn't take much assertiveness to do or plan much of anything, and I feel like it's all being left to me, and it drains me mentally sometimes, as I feel like it's a lot of pressure. We have tried to talk about this before, and we do try continually to work on it. I feel like I have to spend every minute with her when she's here, but if I plan to do stuff with friends, she will moan that we don't do anything, but yet never makes plans with us in the first place. What I feel isn't healthy for her is that she has no real close friends or family where she currently stays, so she works from home when she's not with me all day alone, and then spends most of the day in the house alone. When she visits me again, it's the same thing, except I'll be here when I get home, and I just don't think it's healthy. But how do I explain that to her without hurting her feelings? She may be completely happy doing this, but I feel this puts a lot of pressure on me. When she's here, I never get that feeling of space or time apart, despite her being away for 2 weeks and then back in another 2 weeks. At times, I feel smothered. Today, for example, it was my day off, and I planned to do some things on my own, but she just laid about at work and then started joining in, doing things that I was working on, but I just wanted some time alone to do it. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy her participating or even taking part in my interest, but sometimes I just need some alone time. I just feel we're at a point now where we've had so many conversations that nothing much is improving, and she constantly is getting upset and says I'm being negative when I'm just trying to discuss the problem in our relationship. She says I'm negative about her and can't see the positives in her, which is just completely not true. What should I do? I really do sympathize with the original poster in this one. I know what it's like to need some alone time just to decompress from work, and I also know when I want something done from my significant other and they're just not doing it. So you know what? Maybe some communication and setting up some kind of rules of engagement between the two of you would really go a long way. Maybe explain, hey, for this break of time, I want to just be alone and do my own thing. Maybe that's after work, maybe that's a specific time of the day, something along those lines. And when it comes to planning to do stuff, you could even take turns. Say, hey, this week it's my turn to figure something out for the both of us, and then next week you've got to get something going. That might be a positive solution you can look to and use as a way to get things done. You never know, it might work out. But overall, in my opinion, I think you just need to talk more and figure out what changes need to be made, because I don't think either of you are being a jerk in this situation. It honestly just sounds like there's a little bit of miscommunication that's putting people in the wrong kind of light. I just found out that my wife had a short affair with a coworker, and I don't know what to do. So my wife wife and I have been married for 10 years. We've had our ups and downs, but definitely it's not been terrible. We have 4 kids all under 8 years old. I definitely get lazy pulling my weight on housework sometimes, and it has been a problem to a point. It seems like when I do stuff like laundry or wash dishes or just general cleaning, it's not good enough, and I shut down until it's brought back up again that I don't do enough around the house. Being an awesome father, though, does get me some brownie points just to try and make up for it. Anyways, last winter, my wife became withdrawn and started what I thought was suspicious behavior. I tried to use her phone for the Roku remote on the TV for the kids, but the passcode was changed, and she wouldn't let me know what the new code was, which is whatever, it's no big deal. I just find my phone and I use it. The next day, I find out that location services are turned off on Find a Friends, and it all seems super suspicious. So I flat out ask her what's going on. She says if I want to be that controlling of her, I can see anything on her phone. And at that point, she basically was offering me her phone to take a look. But I told her that I trust her and that I didn't want to look at it. She denies anything is happening, and the location thing was an accident. I only use the location to see when she's on her way home from work so I can try and get dinner going. But it's still weird and I'm still super suspicious. Eventually, she picks up a second job, which was not needed, but the extra money is nice. I work full-time too, so it's not necessary to be completely honest. Parenting was pretty split 50-50 before, but it quickly became 90-10 on my end. I love my kids more than anything, but it just sucks that it seems it's becoming more and more just me doing the parenting since she is working both jobs at a full-time status. Spring break comes along and we take a nice family vacation and things start getting back to normal. She quit her part-time job, got promoted at her main job, and we decided to take a long weekend with just the 2 of us, just so we could enjoy our anniversary in the fall. I was able to get my family to watch the kids, and we honestly had a great time. We got a little tipsy one night, and she asked me to go order some food, and after that, she tosses me her phone to take care of it. She tells me the code to her phone, but I ended up messing it up and getting locked out, so I handed it back to her. So even if I wanted to, I didn't get a chance to look at her phone. We get back home from our trip, and our new phone upgrades that we ordered before we left had finally come in. I was able to migrate my old iPhone info pretty easily. She gets hers mostly done, but the SIM card won't work, so she gets frustrated and says that she will just deal with it later. The next day, I'm off work, and she goes to work, and against my better judgment, I try the new passcode on her phone that she left behind, and much to my surprise, it works, and all of her apps are working, along with her text messages. The new passcode is a date from last winter right before Christmas, which also lines up for when she started acting really shady. I check her messages from one of her best friends from that time, and I see that everything from February and earlier was deleted. I then remember that she makes private Facebook posts for journaling, and she sometimes shares them with me, and some of them she only keeps for herself. I scroll back to the date and my heart sunk. What I thought was going on was actually happening. She was absolutely having an affair with a coworker. It was a 20-year-old guy that she always complained about not pulling his weight. I do some more difficult digging, and I find out it started with just text messages, along with some playful banter at work, and it progressed into some really sketchy stuff, including sending some sketchy photos to each other. And then this led to finally taking a day off work a week before Christmas. But she told me that she was working that day, but in reality, she was just spending some quality time with him. From what I can tell, it was a one-time thing. They still texted each other, and she pushed him for another time, but he wouldn't do it. She deleted the text messages to him, but had screenshots of texts, as well as Snapchats in her hidden photo folder. I'm absolutely crushed. From what I can tell, he cut things off in the middle of January. The text messages from her friends indicate her 2 best friends knew about this and approved of it, which honestly blows my mind. The whole rest of the year, she made private posts about missing him and how bad she wanted to be with him, but she started to say that less and less as time went on. Flash forward back to last weekend, and he moved away to another state for college, and she is acting super depressed. She wrote a private post while we were on vacation that she knows her marriage is important to her and wants to be a better wife and a better mom. She has no idea that I know anything, and when I ask her why she's seemingly so sad today, she says that she's just overwhelmed at work and that she'll eventually be fine. But in reality, I know it's because he left. I don't know what to do about any of this. My trust in her is completely gone, but I still love her. I need to know how I should approach this. Do I just keep it to myself, knowing that it was a one-time mistake on her part and that she wants to work on our relationship? relationship? Do I confront her with the evidence? I'm sure I probably crossed some huge boundaries by snooping, but never in a million years have I or would I ever cheat on my wife, and I certainly was not expecting to find what I found on her phone. What should I do? What a tragic situation to be stuck in. Here you have your wife, who by the way is 37 years old, who blatantly had an affair with a 20-year-old coworker. That is absolutely disturbing and so bad. It's like she completely ignored you as well as your 4 young children. I mean, what on earth was she thinking? What a terrible life decision. And it's also so tragic that all of your worries really were confirmed. I mean, you could tell that something was off, but you couldn't quite pinpoint it until you went through her phone and found exactly what you were worried about. And to that, all I can say is I'm so sorry. So hopefully things can work out for you and your family, especially your kids in this situation, regardless of what you choose to do, because they do not deserve to deal with this. And it's truly tragic that their mom decided to betray their trust. Today, I messed up by expecting my family to pay for my birthday dinner. Yesterday, I turned 18 years old. For the past 6 years, like clockwork, every day on my birthday, we'd go to the same place for dinner, and I'd always get the same thing. For those who are a bit confused, I have extreme OCD, as well as high-functioning autism, which means I'm very well regulated, and I like things to stay the same way that they always have been. Every year on my birthday, we go to Applebee's. The first thing I would get is a steak and shrimp parmesan with a side of loaded mashed potatoes, as well as cheesy steamed broccoli, and on the side, I would have some mozzarella sticks. In total, it would be about $30. A bit expensive, I know. I couldn't really tell, but something was off until a bit later, because when me, my mom, and my stepfather, including my older brother, sat down, they didn't really say anything. I was confused at first, and I started tapping my fingers nervously like I always do. My mother then looks at me and says, "Well, aren't you gonna call the waiter over?" And this gave me extreme anxiety. I have extreme issues when talking to people, and I tend to stutter, and I get very, very scared, if that's the right word. But I countered and asked if she could just do it, and so she did it, but in a huff. My dad and brother are staring nonchalantly, and as she calls the waiter over, the alarm bells are ringing in my head. This is never how it went before. As the waiter gets to the table, he asks everyone what they want, and everybody orders. As he gets to me, my mother stops him and says, "This is gonna be on a separate bill." And this is when my heart began beating very fast. I don't have a job, and all the money I get is from our neighbors raking leaves. I just kind of freeze. I don't really say anything, and I get a really bad stomachache from the anxiety. And this is where I am conflicted on whether I'm the jerk or not. My mother would explain at the table that now that I'm 18, I should be able to pay for my own things. I was already feeling nauseous from the situation, so I just said I don't have the money. My mom then makes a big scene out of it and sends the waiter away. And honestly, this soured the dinner party. However, my mom also paid for my 23-year-old brother. Because of this situation, my family was calling me an entitled jerk the entire ride home. When I got home, I just ran to my room and cried. Now they've been ignoring me the whole day. I may be bad at social cues, but my family has never acted like this before, and I mean never. They've been treating me horrible the whole day. I feel so angry and upset at my family. If I would have been warned, I would have saved my raking money and used it for the night. My family gets a little tight on money, and I guess I really should have asked before I assumed that they were going to pay for it. But I missed out on my birthday dinner because I wasn't mature enough to bring my own money. I guess I'm just going to have to rake leaves for a couple of weeks just to order it and make up for it with some takeout. What a terrible situation. Like, this original poster's family is super toxic. What kind of healthy parents would do this? Like, they just spring it on their son and say, "Okay, congratulations. You're paying for it with the job that you don't have, the money you currently don't have." Like, that's just ridiculous. Maybe some kind of talk that doesn't humiliate them in public would be a lot better than whatever they decided to do at this dinner table. I mean, that's just absolutely unfair. And to top it all off, this was literally your birthday. This was supposed to be a birthday dinner that you've had since you were a kid. I think anybody could confidently assume that everyone was there under the assumption that this was your birthday dinner, just like you've done every year for like the past however many years. Like, this is ridiculous, and your parents really should be ashamed of themselves. So in my opinion, you didn't mess up at all. If anything, it just shows how bad your parents really are, because this is absolutely obnoxious, and you did not have to deal with that for a second. My entitled parents refused to pay me back $12,000 that I loaned to them, telling me that unless I showed them some respect, I would never get my money back. And I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. 2 months ago, I recently lent my parents parents $12,000 as my family and I moved states, and they needed the money to pay for the house, bond, and rent. Plus, they needed money for furniture as well as some flights and some other things. My dad works and my mom gets money from the government. They have no debt or mortgages. They still have enough money to spend, but it's just the moving that was so expensive. They still get paid and have a reasonable amount of money though, but only enough for living and not enough to improve the house with furniture or painting it or stuff like that. Generally speaking, I'm always happy to lend my parents any kind of money that they need in the past, and previously it's always been paid back. I have had a really great relationship with them, and I respected them greatly growing up, especially my dad, and until recently we got along really well. I had planned on buying a car so I could work at my dream job, but they needed the money at the same time, so I gave it to them instead. Since then, I have grown increasingly bitter and angry towards them, as they have made no efforts to pay me back. And this shows in our relationship, as I am now really snappy or rude to them more often. I have lightly reminded them in the past weeks about the money that they owed me, and they just brushed it off, saying that, oh, you should just have patience. We don't have that kind of money yet. Eventually, I sat them down today, and I explained how much having a car would mean to me, and that I feel taken advantage of. My dad ended up saying, we will not pay you back anything until you stop with the rude comments and start showing us respect. And at that point, I ended up in tears because I honestly felt incredibly used. This was genuinely a first, as usually they try their best to pay me back in the past. It was always smaller amounts in the past though, and they used to treat me with respect and they were kind. They have shown no appreciation, besides a couple of thank you comments, and I honestly feel so depressed about it. I'm working at the moment and I'm saving more money, but it takes so long at $17 an hour. I also really need to buy a new phone, a new laptop, and several other things, but my funds are so low at the moment. My older sister, when she was my age, got $8,000 given to her for university, and she was given a laptop, an iPhone, and she was working at the time too, and had her own money to spend. She refuses to lend them her money, but she was given all this money in exchange for nothing. For me personally, based on my own personal beliefs, I don't like refusing someone in need when they really do need help. So if I have the money, I want to be willing to step up and help out. I still live with them, and moving out is not an option for me due to personal reasons. I also don't really want to move out, as I'm very close to my siblings. How can I get them to pay me back, or at least set up a plan to do so? I am really struggling to come up with results, so any advice is really appreciated. What a tragedy this is. Basically, this original poster's parents said, oh, you want to give us $12,000? Thank you very much, and then they just took it, and they have no intention of paying it back. That would be literally the last time I would ever give them money, first and foremost. But most importantly, these parents are so toxic. I mean, this is $12,000. That is not a cheap amount. And the original poster has it right. There is so much that they could do with this money to try and improve their life and give them things that they need. They need a car, they need a laptop, they need a phone. Literally all of that's being obstructed because their parents took advantage of them. And yes, the original poster absolutely got taken advantage of. For better context, the original poster is only 18 years old, so it's understandable where you're thinking, hey, let me just lend some money to my parents. They clearly need a leg up and I'm gonna help them out. The original poster probably never expected that their parents would never pay them back. So if I was in your shoes and they were really being this unmoving on giving me back my money, then I would feel used as well. This is really unfortunate for the original poster. Maybe there's some help if you talk with your extended family. Maybe talk to them about your situation and see if they might be able to help you out with what's going on. Because who knows, maybe they can talk to your mom or dad and explain to them, hey, you really need to pay your kid back. But hopefully you get this money back, because $12,000 is a lot of money, and it would be a shame for you to never get it back. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for cutting ties with my girlfriend a week before my family's Thanksgiving vacation? I'm a 22-year-old male, and I've been dating my now ex-girlfriend for about 2.5 years. I met her at college, and we hit it off straight away. We got together within the first month of talking to each other, and when she met my family, they instantly loved her. Every year, my family goes on a long vacation before Thanksgiving, and it's something I always look forward to. This year, I asked my family if my girlfriend could come on our Thanksgiving vacation. My mom said it was a great idea and she is welcome. Around a month and a half before the vacation, my girlfriend sent me a text message saying that she no longer has feelings for me and that she wants to break up. And when I heard that, I was shattered. She never showed any signs of losing feelings for me. She was at my mom's house for dinner earlier that week. She never really told me why, but she kept saying saying, "Oh, it's not you," as well as saying, "There's no one else." I was hurt so much. I really loved her, and I could even see myself marrying her. I tried calling her and texting her, asking her what the problem was, but she either dodged the question or just straight up ignored me. I was in a very dark place for the first 2 weeks, but during the last 2 weeks, I have pulled myself up and I've gotten over it. Fast forward about a month, and I got a text message from a mutual friend about my ex-girlfriend saying that she broke up with her boyfriend and that she now wants to get back with me. This really surprised me, as she told me that she wasn't getting with anyone else and she just left me because she lost feelings. And soon enough, I get a call from my ex telling me that she wants to get back in a relationship with me. I told her that a mutual friend had told me that she was with someone else for the last month. She broke down and said that she did catch feelings for someone else, and she didn't want to tell me just because she didn't want to hurt me. She also said that the guy that she was seeing had cheated on her, and that she was coming to me for my support because I was always a loving and caring boyfriend. I told her that she would have been better off telling me that in the first place instead of ignoring me and putting me in such a dark place. I told her that I loved her and that I was really looking forward to going on my family's Thanksgiving vacation. She told me that she was sorry, and I half accepted her apology and just hung up after that. I was thinking about getting back with her until the same mutual friend sent me a screenshot of my ex telling this friend that basically because she dumped this other guy, she would then be able to get back with me and be able to go on this vacation with my family again. She then also implied that she was always going to go on this trip, regardless of the fact that her boyfriend cheated on her. And she was also basically trying to make me feel bad so that I would get back with her and take her with me on this trip. And at this point, I lost it. It really hurt knowing that she only came back to me because her current boyfriend cheated on her, and that she just wants me to feel bad just so I can bring her back into my life so she can go on my family's Thanksgiving vacation. I sent her the screenshot and said, "Don't ever talk to me again." And I blocked her on everything possible and completely cut ties with her. I told my parents and family, and they comforted me, and they actually booked an extra week of vacation, which was really, really nice of them. Now, back when I blocked my ex, all of her friends kept calling me, saying that I was such a jerk for doing that to her, telling me that because she got cheated on, I'm somehow supposed to be there for her to comfort her. They also tried to say that her going on that vacation would have really helped her recover from the trauma and stress that she went through, which is honestly ridiculous. But it begs the question, am I the jerk for cutting ties with my ex-girlfriend before my family went on their Thanksgiving vacation? Because honestly, I'm not sure. You are not the jerk in this situation. Your ex is literally just trying to use you to get back on that vacation trip, which is just really disgusting in my opinion. You absolutely made the right move of trying to get away from her. She was literally just trying to manipulate you and make you feel bad so you'll have to let her back in just so she can go on this vacation trip with your family. I mean, how weird is that? So honestly, just move on from that, because this lady sounds crazy, and you can find a girlfriend who will love you for who you are, as well as one who won't use you just to go on some vacation. An entitled mother sits there while her kid cries on the ground and refuses to help him after he fell off his bike, and I honestly could not be more annoyed. So I was in the park with some of my friends. We had been there for a few hours, and most of them decided to go home. One of my friend's bike chain had jumped off its gears, so I helped him put it back on. After he leaves, I start heading towards a cafe in the park so I could run into the restroom and wash the black grease from the bike chain off of my hands. And this is where the entitled mother comes into this story. As I was approaching the cafe, this little kid, who couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old, falls off his little kid bicycle and starts crying. No one goes to help this poor little kid, so I help the little boy off the floor and see that he has some scratches on his leg. I ask him if he knows where his parents are, but he can't get any word out through the tears. So he points at this lady sitting on the bench nearby, who is looking up at the whole situation. I pick up his little bike and I'm about to walk him over to his mom when a man runs up to us in quite a panic to see if his son is alright. At this point, I noticed that the chain on the kid's bike was dangling off. As I still had grease on my hands from fixing my friend's bike earlier, I offer to help out and try and put his chain back on his bike. At this point, the dad is being very thankful towards me. He asks his son where his mom was, and the boy once again points to the same lady sitting on a bench, who is still just watching the situation play out. The father sighs, and you can hear the frustration in his voice now. I give the bike to the dad once I'm done, and he thanks me. As I'm about to walk away to go wash my hands, the lady who had been watching the whole situation up until this point walks up to me and gives me a $10 bill. I ask her what this was for, and she says it's for fixing her son's bike. bike. And at this point, I just about lost my mind. I say to this lady with the most shocked expression I've probably ever had on my face, "You just watched your son fall off his bike and get hurt, and you didn't budge from the bench, you didn't care, but instead you're going to pay me for fixing his bike?" And once I had said that, she looks at me as if she had done nothing wrong and proceeds to say, "Oh, he's just exaggerating." She says this as she glances at the kid sitting on the ground with his dad cleaning the cut that he got on his knee. I look at this entitled mother and I say, "Look, keep your money, lady. Just take care of your child, please." And I proceed to walk off to the cafe restroom. As I'm walking away, I hear the dad starting to argue with her. I have no idea what happened next or what they were saying to each other, but regardless, I just hope this mom finally starts to look after her kid. How weird and entitled can you possibly get? Here's your kid falling on the ground, screaming and crying, cutting their leg open, and you're just sitting there on the bench watching a stranger take care of them. I mean, if that's not a terrible parent, I don't know what is. Thankfully, this kid has a good father who's actively involved in this kid's life, because the mom literally just sat there like a passenger and did absolutely nothing to help their son, which is not fair for the kid at all, or for the person who helped him out in the first place. I mean, they didn't have to stop and help this kid. The fact that he stopped in public just to help out a child is really brave of him, to be completely honest, because there are some crazy people out there that would make some crazy assumptions. So good for him for at least doing a good deed for the day, even if this mom is a terrible mother and would rather let a stranger take care of her kid as opposed to stepping up and doing the right thing. My entitled mother goes through my diary and learns about my deep dark secrets just to try and use them against me. And when I tried to approach her about it, she just doubled down and said that she did this for my own good, and I honestly could not be more upset. Here's what happened. For some backstory, my mom is religious and incredibly intrusive, more so nowadays since my brother got married and moved out. She doesn't believe in privacy and thinks she has to know everything. I have known her to pry into my drawers and things and listen behind the door at times when I'm either talking to someone or myself. She also did this with my brother when he was still living here, listening in on his video calls to his fiance because she didn't trust his marriage. It started with him, but now she's moved on to me. So I was feeling mentally ill, and my mom knew about this and suggested that I write down my thoughts on paper to get everything out. I didn't know how to feel about therapy yet, and I thought it was a good idea. For the next year and a half, I wrote down my emotions. Stuff like how my day went, my experiences, everything. I would vent, I would cry, I would smile to this book. I would even draw down my feelings if I felt like it. It was very personal to me, and there was some extremely personal stuff in that journal. Things including my darkest thoughts, my true identity, and descriptive details about my relationship with my partner. I never planned for anyone to read it, especially my mother. Some days, however, she would ask me questions to say things that would sound awfully similar to what I would be experiencing at the time, even though I had not told her anything. I got suspicious, but I never asked, and instead, I just started to hide my journal. One day, I was approached by my partner, who was paranoid and wanted to buy a pregnancy test. I was extremely nervous, and I was stressed, as we were too young to take care of a baby. I mean, we wanted to have a kid one day, but not this early. I had so many emotions going on inside my head, but I took the test, and it turned out negative. We were both relieved, and we calmed down for the rest of the day. But at the end of the day, I wrote down an entry regarding what happened, and I just tucked it away. The next morning was eerily quiet. We had woken up for mass, and my brother was driving us there. He was acting normal. It was my mom and dad that were very off. I would try looking to my mom, but she'd either look away or stare right through me. It was an extremely uncomfortable drive. When we made it to church, my mom and brother left the car, while my dad and I stayed inside for the next 30 minutes before mass starts. I look over to my dad and I ask him, "Dad, what's going on? Why is mom acting so cold?" It takes him a minute just to respond to me before he says, "You shouldn't leave your diary lying around." My heart and my stomach dropped. She could have read anything or everything. I was absolutely terrified for what would happen next, but I also felt really hurt and betrayed. My dad helped to console me and admitted that he didn't want to read it, but my mom forced him to listen to her reading it out loud to him. He wanted to respect my privacy and had the same experience in the past, where his mom read through his diaries and confronted him about them, in which he later had to end up burning those diaries. I was really thankful to have had him there by my side, and I couldn't have asked for a better dad. Since then, we've been getting along and have a much closer relationship. My mom and I, on the other hand, we finally had a sit down that night and we talked, and she finally told me herself herself about the journal. She confronted me about my most recent entry, the pregnancy test entry, and told me how mortified she was that I was spending quality time before marriage. And she just kept asking me, "You do know that's not right, right? It's not how a Catholic girl should be." She went on and on, sobbing and questioning whether she was naive to believe I could behave and not be tempted, as well as asking the heart-wrenching question, "Am I not a good mother?" I just sat there, crying silently with my head down, while my dad stayed quiet until he decided to sit next to me and hug me close. Eventually, I spoke up and I asked her, "Why did you look through my journal? What gives you the right?" She argued that she had every right, since I was going through a tough time and she was looking out for me since I never talked to her about my problems, and that apparently this is the only way that she'll know, and now this is apparently a way for me to learn to trust her. But I don't want to talk to her about what's going on in my mind. It always ends up relating to her religious beliefs or making me feel more terrible than I already do feel. And her reading through my diary didn't make me want to trust her anymore. If anything, it made me want to run away. Ever since then, there's been a massive rift between me and my mom. I'm usually very forgiving, sometimes a little too forgiving, but I don't know if this is something I can let go of. Before, any behavior that I saw, I just brushed off because I thought I was overreacting, but after that, it became a bit clearer to me that something really was off. It really sunk in for me when I was telling a friend this same story while also stating, "But she's a nice mom, right? She makes me food and buys me clothes." My friend then stopped me and mentioned how those are just basic necessities and that I shouldn't be basing my relationship with her on whether or not she's providing those basic necessities. My friend then asked me how she's supporting me in my life or if I have any other good memories with her. And after that, I just blanked, which is honestly really unfortunate. So to all the parents out there, please understand this. If your kid wants to talk to you, they will if they feel you are approachable and will be supportive. But if they don't want to, that's fine too, and they are entitled to their own privacy. And don't spy on your kids in hopes that it will bring you two closer together, as it will only make you drift apart and could potentially break your relationship with them. What an awful situation to be stuck in. I think it's funny that your mom asked the question, "Am I a good mother?" Because you know what? If you're spying on your kid like that and making assumptions about your kid based on a private journal entry, then yeah, you're a pretty terrible mother. A journal or a diary is just that. It's supposed to be private experiences that you're just trying to get out of your head and document for later reference. Later meaning like, I don't know, years later, not like 10 minutes later. The original poster's mom is incredibly toxic, and no amount of justifying on her end is ever going to excuse her going through this person's diary, because in my opinion, there's absolutely no good reason for that. My boyfriend's family is really controlling of his life, and I honestly don't know what to do in our circumstance. My boyfriend and I have been together for almost 2 years. We graduated in June, and we're planning on moving in together in a new city. Because he ended up getting a job in his hometown, I decided to move with him. We've been living separately for the first few months, due to him wanting to spend more time with his family, as well as just try to save some money, which I've been okay with since I was able to find a pretty solid job and have been able to support myself while living with my roommates. Before moving, we agreed that we would live separately for a couple of months for the above reasons before moving in together, especially so his family could become more acquainted with me. Flash forward a few months to now, and I am more than ready for us to move in together. I'm tired of living with roommates, and I want a nicer place. I'm also tired of having to go to his parents' house whenever I want to see him. I want my boyfriend and I to have our own life together. The only thing stopping us is his family's rejection and disapproval of our idea. They are deeply religious and think it's too early for us to move in together. In fact, they want to sit down and have a discussion about compromising in some way instead of just allowing us to move in together. We talked for over an hour last night over the phone, which was per their request. Their ideas are that he lives with me part-time and pays me 1/4 of my rent, which is just financially unfeasible. This city is very expensive, and that just would not work. The other option is that we wait until later in the future. And you know what? I really don't want to compromise. Reason being that I don't want to set a precedent that it's okay for them to interfere or dictate our life decisions. That's just not going to happen. We are both adults, and we both make our own money. I also feel that I already made a lot of sacrifices by moving across the state on the premise that we would live together. My boyfriend and I have already put a lot of thought into this individually, and I am of the belief that family members can be there to guide and provide wisdom in the process, but they shouldn't play a huge role in making the ultimate decision. So I honestly need to know, who is being unreasonable here? Is it me or is it the parents? Am I showing red flags, as they would put it? What should I do? I don't think it's unreasonable for you two to make your own decisions. For context, the people that are being described in this story are not teenagers. They are in their 20s, they are adults. They very much can make their own decisions in their life. So the fact that this guy's parents are stepping in and saying, okay, let's do it this way, which would definitely be financially unfeasible for you, is really inappropriate in my opinion. And I honestly would not take it. If you want to move in with your boyfriend, that is a decision between the two of you. They have literally nothing to do with it. And if anything, this is a problem with your boyfriend. I mean, how is he allowing them to basically run his life? He is 22 years old. He should be able to make his own adult choices. He does not need them all over him, dictating what he can and cannot do. That's not fair for you, and it's definitely not fair for him. And honestly, letting these people in to have some kind of discussion, as if they have any chips in this game, is only going to cause frustration in your life. I'm not saying cut them out, but I think cutting them out of this decision specifically and making it between you and your boyfriend would do both of you a lot of good. Because you said it best. You literally moved across the state under the mutual assumption that you would be living with your boyfriend eventually. And if that somehow gets ruined because of his parents, that would be incredibly infuriating. So I think have a conversation with your boyfriend and decide with him specifically what you two want to do, because his parents do not make the decisions anymore. And honestly, it really comes down to what you and your boyfriend want to do. My entitled mother lies to my face, telling me that I have a heart defect ever since I was a baby. And she did all that just to try and prevent me from getting the COVID-19 vaccine. And when I found out the truth, I was absolutely enraged. And I absolutely could not believe that she would do something like that to me. Here's what happened. So this was in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, right when they started announcing the vaccine for teenagers. I was living with my mom, who wasn't anti-vax growing up, but now believes COVID is fake, and the vaccines are evil and all this other weird stuff. I had told her I wanted to get the vaccine and asked her to book me an appointment, but she said no. Every time I asked her, it was a no, with whatever excuse she decided to make up. Until one day, I sat her down and I decided either she support me in this choice or I would go and get it done myself without her. And this is what I had to say. I said, Mom, I know how you feel about the vaccine, but you are immunocompromised. And if you get COVID, this will be really bad. I need to get this vaccine. My mom looked at me and said, I don't care. No, you are not putting that in your body. I tried to reason with her by saying, Mom, pretty soon we won't be able to go anywhere without being vaccinated. I won't be able to go out for dinner with my friends or do anything. And at this point, my mom drops the biggest lie she's ever told me in my life. My mom asks me if I want to know the truth as to why she doesn't want me getting a vaccine. She went on to say, when you were born, you had a tube in your heart that wouldn't close. We had to keep you in the hospital for weeks to fix it. And even then, they were worried that it could open back up at any point and that you would not live. Doctors say you shouldn't get the vaccine if you have had a severe heart defect, and you do. And when she had said this, I was absolutely astounded. I had heard many stories about my birth and the health problems I faced as a baby, but that was never mentioned. Not once in my growing up. I was immediately worried about my heart and started panicking, doing research to see what are the chances that it were to open up and to cause more problems in my life. My mother knew I was panicking over it and simply said nothing, but I was freaking out. So I reached out to a friend of mine that had a similar heart defect, and we chatted for a little bit, and she said I should be fine to get the vaccine. Fast forward to a week or two later, and I went downstairs to tell my mom that I had booked an appointment to get the vaccine, and that after much research, I should be fine. But as soon as I told her that, she looks up from her phone and says extremely nonchalantly, oh, by the way, you don't have anything wrong with your heart. I just don't want you to get the vaccine. And she said this as if she was telling me she was going to get milk, totally calm with absolutely no remorse for lying to me. My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe that my own mother had lied to me about me having some serious health problems just so I wouldn't get this vaccine. She watched me freak out about it and worry about passing away and said nothing about it. She just let me freak out. She watched me almost cry when she told me and said nothing, all because she didn't want me to get a vaccine to save her life. I eventually got the vaccine anyway, and with much begging, eventually so did she. She refused to get her second dose and was extremely overdramatic about her first. She screamed and cried for hours, saying how much her arm hurts and how sick she was. To this day, she still only has one dose, and I've never forgotten the fact that she lied to me. This is actually crazy to me. The fact that this mother would lie to their kid, claiming that they had some kind of heart problem, just to avoid them getting the COVID vaccine, is like borderline crazy in my opinion. If you don't want to get it for personal reasons, then go ahead, don't do it. But to lie to somebody just to manipulate them so they can follow your stupid agenda is so unbelievably toxic and such a terrible thing to do, especially to your own child. Like, the original poster was literally doing this to try and protect their mom. They were literally trying to just not get them sick. But she turns around and lies about a serious health problem. I mean, that's absolutely unexcusable in my opinion. And sure, the original poster's mom has every right not to get the vaccine. And they have every right to voice their opinion of, hey, I don't think you should get it either. Like, go for it. Free country. Do whatever you want. But to make up a lie this severe about someone having heart troubles just so you can feel smug about preventing them from getting it is not only unbelievably toxic, but also incredibly abusive. The original poster went on to say that they now live about 18 hours away from their family, and that her mom lives off the grid, whatever that means. So hopefully they don't have to deal with him on a daily basis anymore, because who knows what other kind of lies this lady will come up with just to try and manipulate their kid. My friend tries to put me down just because I live with my parents in my 30s, and it's really starting to bother me, and I honestly don't know what to do. So I'm in my 30s, and I live with my parents. I've always held a job, and I make a good salary. I contribute a sizable amount to them monthly, which I think helps them financially, and I prefer to give them the money rather than a stranger in rent. I have a friend who seems to always try to bring up if I'm still living with them, especially if we haven't talked in a long time. She has either lived on her own or with her boyfriend from when she was in her 20s, but has always struggled greatly financially, at times even having multiple jobs. I have always had more disposable income or spending room, and I think she resents me for it, even though it's never been rubbed in her face, and we don't even meet up that often to see each other. She's really struggling financially though, and earns below the poverty line, and now also has kids. I never ask about her financial situation or ever really bring up money, but whenever we speak, she gets really aggressive to find out whether or not I'm still living at home. It's asked kind of in a rudely and demanding way, and the question usually doesn't even fit the conversation. It's almost just out of nowhere. I feel like she compares us in her head, and the only thing that allows her to feel she has a foot up and isn't doing so bad in life is being able to say something like, well, I might not have as much, but at least I'm not a loser who still lives with my parents. I have no shame about it, and actually enjoy a super good relationship with my parents, who have been married for 40 plus years. I genuinely enjoy their company, as well as their conversation, and this is just an opportunity to know and to relate to them as adults, which I would not have had the chance to do if I moved out right when I was 18. I don't know how long they'll be around for, and you know what? I like to get time with them when I can. But I feel the tone of the question is meant to shame and expose me, almost as if the way she's asking the question is her way of gleefully snatching the sheet off of me and exposing me as lame in some way, as well as just trying to knock me down a notch, or somehow trying to convince me that I'm not that good after all. Her own dad, I think, has never been active in her life, while I've always had an excellent life, and my parents gave me absolutely everything they could. I was never spoiled, because we were of very modest means, and we never had money like that anyway. I honestly feel that my living with them is brought up on purpose to not only try and bring me down, but also to give her the upper hand in the relationship, or just as some lame, unseen power dynamic game she's playing by herself. Her living conditions in choosing to move out have been at many times not anything I would want. An attempt was made to garnish her wages over unpaid debt, and her car was repossessed. And you know what? Despite these facts, I've never laughed at her for any of those things, or even mentioned them outright, and those could be considered very embarrassing. So I find it annoying that she's trying to humiliate me on my choice to continue living at home. I'm beginning to get very annoyed at the behavior, because it's clearly an aggression towards me, and there are many things about how she lives that I could embarrass her on, but I don't. She's using it to make me a bit of a punching bag, so she can feel better about herself, and I'm not going to allow that to go on forever, as her money hangups are her own, and nothing will ever give her the right to be disrespectful to me. How should I approach confronting her about this? Because honestly, I don't know what to do. It sounds like your friend's really trying to be toxic, and if anything, it sounds like she's jealous because she does not have what you have with your parents. Like, clearly she does not know that kind of family dynamic. She moved out almost immediately when she she was early in her 20s, and she has either lived on her own or with her boyfriend. You, on the other hand, have stayed at home, and that's by choice. You provide for yourself, and you do pay rent and all those other things. So it's really unfortunate for your friend to be acting this way. And yeah, I agree with you. I think this really is on purpose. I think she's just trying to do this to make herself feel better. And if you look at it that way, this really is a sad situation, because anyone who has to do that just to have any kind of self-confidence in themselves, or just so they can feel better about themselves, is really a sad individual. I think deep down they've just got some problems. So if anything, I would take this with a grain of salt. But it seems like you've tried that and it's starting to wear you down. So maybe you could address this in a really subtle way and explain that, hey, I really do enjoy living with my parents. I provide rent, I pay for my own stuff, and I don't take advantage of anybody. And somehow convey to her that you are 100% okay with this and you're not ashamed of it. That would be my personal plan if I was in your shoes. But if you want to take the more direct approach, then I think it's honestly a simple conversation. You just straight up say to your friend, hey, stop making fun of me because I live with my parents. And then that would hopefully be the end of it. If they still want to go on and try and pretend like this wasn't a thing, and then like flip it on you as if you're the problem, then I think that's all you need to know about whether or not you want to still be friends with this person. Because based on what you've described, they don't sound like a nice friend at all. And if anything, I think you're right. They just want to try and play this power game that nobody signed up for. And if that really is the truth, she's just trying to put you down to make herself feel better, then in my opinion, you can find a lot better friends than that. Because nobody deserves to be treated that way, regardless of what situation you might be living in. My girlfriend called me out in front of her friends, and I'm honestly really upset and I don't know what to do. So I'm a 28-year-old male, and I am a bit sensitive to being corrected or called out in front of others. My girlfriend told me the other day, as we were getting out of the car, hey, don't slam the door. And I don't think I had closed it that hard, but I am fine closing it more gently if that bothers her. What bothered me is that it was among friends, and I felt embarrassed to have this pointed out. I asked her later in private not to correct or criticize me in front of others. She is having a hard time understanding what I mean by this, and now feels like she can't ask anything from me if anyone is around. I don't mind if she makes a request or asks me to do something, such as, hey, could you help me with the dishes or something like that. That would be totally fine. What I mind is her pointing out a flaw or some kind of issue in the company of friends. This has caused a big argument between us, and now she feels like she can't meet my requirements for this sort of language. I feel like I am asking a very basic level of respect and gentleness of language, and I'm confused why she is struggling to understand where I'm coming from. I tried to explain with an example. So if she said something like, can you please clean up after yourself when you make a mess, to me would feel like I'm being called out because it implies that I'm being messy or generally I don't clean up after myself. Instead, she could have said something like, could you clean up those plates please? Which to me is a much more direct and nicer way to ask for that, because it's not generalizing the problem. But now she feels that anything she says could imply a problem and feels paralyzed to ask for things in front of others, just in the off chance that it might offend me. Again, I am fine with these conversations in private, but when it's in public, it feels really embarrassing. Am I asking too much? Should I be less sensitive? It all feels very intuitive to me, so I'm confused as to why she just doesn't get it. But also, to be clear, in private, when it comes to her telling me not to slam the door, her comment would not have been a big deal at all. But honestly, what did bother me was the annoyed tone she used and the fact that it was in front of our friends. This is all really frustrating, and I honestly don't know what to do. So in my opinion, I think the original poster is just a little too sensitive. I don't think someone telling you not to slam the door warrants any kind of private conversation. I mean, this would be different if she shouted at you or made fun of you afterwards or something like that, but a simple correction and just a request, to be honest, is not that big of a deal, regardless of if it's in front of people or not. So I think maybe this is just a you problem, if anything. I can kind of see where you're coming from, but at the same time, it just seems a little silly. I think you just gotta realize that your girlfriend's probably not doing it maliciously, and she's not doing it to try and embarrass you or somehow put you down. She probably just didn't want you to slam the door. And also, to the credit of the original poster, I can kind of see where you're coming from with the cleaning up example, where the first one kind of implies that you make a mess all the time, but the other one implies, hey, can you just clean up these plates? But even that, it's not that big of a deal. And I think this is something on your end that you need to figure out. Because from the sounds of it, unless there's something going on that you have not described in this story, I don't honestly think your girlfriend is doing anything wrong. And I honestly think you would be better off not taking this so seriously and getting so upset over the smallest comments. My mother is constantly putting me down and making me feel terrible regardless of the circumstances. And I've honestly had enough, and I've decided to move on on from her. First, a bit of backstory before the main event. My biological dad was never a part of my life. Literally, I was 6 months old and he was gone, but my sibling's dad raised me and was a part of my life from the age of 2 years old up until 21, and my stepdad has been with my mom for the past 21 years, so I've always had parents. I have also always had issues with the biological dad thing. It does bother me, and because of it, I've had therapy and a lot of counseling, and because of that, I'm able to manage just fine. My mom also knows that it bothers me though, and when she's tried numerous times over the years to push me to seek out my biological dad and have some kind of relationship with him, I've explained that that isn't going to happen ever, but yet she still continues to push. So I moved out at 22 after I had to return after university to live with my parents. I then spent about 7 years living 3.5 hours away, so I got used to not seeing them that often. I moved back to an area where family lives just over a year ago. I'm very much an independent person. I live my life, I run my own household, and I work full time. I was a prison officer for 8 years, so because of that, my shifts and hours were very much all over the place, and I didn't have a lot of free time. I'm super close to my cousin and her family. They live about 20 minutes away from me, and we go to the same gym and spend a lot of time together. And to be completely honest, she's more of a sister than anything else. I've also suffered with depression and anxiety over the years. I've been medicated in the past. This is something my mom always questioned. She would always say something like, "What have you even got to be depressed about?" I mean, I do okay. I've recently changed jobs. I got myself a wonderful and supportive partner. I got a dog, and everything does seem good. But to me, living my life is not something to report back to my parents every 3 seconds. And if I did tell them something I was doing, there would just be judgment. They would say stuff like, "I don't like your tattoos," or "I think your movies and shows are stupid," or they would try and monitor how I spend my money. The pressure when I was single to find someone and have children was immense. I hated being questioned about my love life, so I would request it be a topic never spoken about, yet it would always be brought up regardless. Eventually, I began to dread spending time with my parents, as it would never end up going well, and I really didn't want to be a part of it. So my mom would want to spend time together, which is cool, no worries, me too. Yet she would complain when I wouldn't sort out anything solid, but at the same time, she wouldn't call me or attempt to make any arrangement herself either. It wasn't as if she was constantly trying to rearrange things, and I would say no. She just expected me to be the one to reach out every time. If I didn't instigate it, it didn't count, and I would never be able to pop around, as they live on a boat and they move about, and they are always a bit of a drive away. I live in a solid, stationary house, and on occasions when she's asked me to come by on such and such day, the answer is always yes. Several times in the past, she's given me ultimatums of sort, saying stuff like, "I've tried to be a good mother, you don't appreciate me, and your dad left me," which is something she loves to throw out, using the line of "I'm an only parent" quite a bit. And that honestly always destroyed me to be reminded that yes, my biological father was not there. And you know what? I've always called and pleaded and apologized, but this latest one just did not work out the way that it usually does. My mom has never been a stranger to cutting contact with family members if they've done something that she doesn't like, and this time around, I'm the latest person to get this treatment. In fact, she didn't speak to her own mother for 6 years, and she didn't speak to her sister either for about 7. So when it comes to me, the thing that triggered this type of response was that I told her I was going to take Nan out for lunch, and if she wanted to come too, she should come along. Initially, I got a response saying, "I don't know whether to be happy to be invited or sad. I think it's the latter." And after she said that, I didn't even bother responding. The next day, I get a message back from her, and she says that she's so disappointed with the fact that I apparently didn't make any effort to try and meet for lunch, which is honestly not true because I did reach out, and I asked her if she did want to get involved, but she said no. And moments like this have cropped up throughout my entire life. And you know what? I'm angry. I'm so upset, and I'm just done with this. It's like I'm being punished for living my life, and I honestly don't want to grovel anymore. My partner saw this and saw my reaction to it, and he was utterly disgusted by it. And you know what? I'm just gonna let her have her way. She is the one that stepped out, and I am simply done with running after her anymore. What a terrible parent. It seems like she's trying to do all these things just to make your life a little bit more miserable. So you know what? I don't blame you for walking away from this situation, because she sounds incredibly toxic, and it doesn't look like any type of negotiation or talking is ever going to change that fact. My entitled roommate is refusing to get rid of a dog that she just suddenly picked up, and is in fact risking us all getting evicted if she doesn't get rid of it, and I honestly don't know what to do. So I live in a mobile home complex, and I share a trailer with my wife and 2 roommates. Recently, my female roommate gave us 30 days notice that she will be moving out because she had lost her job, which is the 3rd job she's lost since she moved in with us 6 months ago, and she found a boyfriend who would let her live with him rent-free. She did pay her last month's share of rent, which we paid the landlord last week. A few nights ago, the soon-to-be ex-roommate woke me up in the middle of the night to ask me if she could bring a friend's dog over just for a couple of nights because he was being rehomed, and the person rehoming him needed to get rid of the dog immediately while the person taking the dog needed a couple of days to get their house ready. I told her I was personally okay with it as long as it was only a couple of days, and I assumed she would make sure it was okay with my wife and our other roommate too. I only found out after she brought the dog over that she had asked my wife, who told her she wasn't okay with it, and she didn't even ask our other roommate at all. Yesterday, the roommate informed us that she had fallen in love with the dog and would be keeping it herself. She didn't even ask us if we were okay with that. The problem with that is, first of all, our complex that we live in requires a pet deposit of $100 per pet, which she refuses to pay because she's only staying here another month and can't afford it. And if she gets caught taking the dog out, then we will get evicted. The other problem is her bedroom is right next to our other roommate's bedroom, and all the noise the dog is making, plus all the noise she's making talking to the dog and taking him to go out to the bathroom every hour, is keeping our roommate awake when he's trying to sleep. My wife and I can also hear her taking out the dog when we're sleeping because the front door is right next to our bedroom, and she loudly talks to the dog in the front yard. My wife, our male roommate, and I had a meeting with each other about this situation, which is when I found out that my wife told the roommate that she wasn't okay with the dog at all, and our other roommate hadn't even been asked if he was okay with it. We all agreed that we weren't okay with her waking us up all the time and potentially getting us evicted if she gets caught, which would be pretty easy, by the way, when she's taking the dog outside every hour and loudly talking to him. So I took the initiative to calmly and politely tell her that we weren't okay with her keeping the dog here, and she would need to find somewhere else to keep him until she moves into her new place. And when I told her this, she went berserk. She started yelling at me, demanding that I give her back her rent money, but I told her that rent was already paid to the landlord. She then demanded that either we let her keep the dog or we have to pay her back for the rent that she paid. She then said that we should just deal with the dog because it's only for a month. I told her we tried being nice about this, but she wasn't being fair to us. She needs to consider everybody in the house, not just herself. She is still refusing to get rid of the dog, and it is going to take her a while to move all her stuff into her boyfriend's house. I'm not even sure if there's a way we can legally enforce her removing the dog without risking getting evicted for having an illegal animal in the complex. And worst of all, we can't even go to the landlord to do anything because all they could do is just give a 30-day eviction notice. Other people in this complex have gotten kicked out for having illegal animals, but they were still given 30 days to move out because that's the law. So either way, it looks like she's forcing us to put up with the dog for the next month. We're also worried because she said that she would take things into her own hands if we didn't comply with her demands, which might mean that she could lie to the landlord and say we consented to the dog being there or something like that. It's hard to know what she means by that, but she has a history of ruining people's lives when she doesn't get her way, and I honestly don't know what to do. What a crazy situation, because this lady is literally trying to get you evicted. She's using this dog as some kind of extortion tactic where she's gonna be like, you know what, you can either listen to me or I'm gonna make things worse. I mean, if I was in your shoes, I would go to the landlord, all 3 of you, and say, no, we did not consent to this dog, and basically expose this lady for the psychopath that she's being. That way you can at least avoid getting evicted in some way, shape, or form by saying, hey, this is our roommate that's moving out, we do not want this, and this dog is not ours. So hopefully this gets worked out in some way, because this definitely sounds like a nightmare, and this lady literally sounds unhinged. So hopefully nothing drastic happens, and she can just leave without any kind of problems. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.